UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, I'm Peter Cardwell. Oh no, I'm not, I'm Kevin O'Sullivan. I'm in for Peter this afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to Drive Time right here on Talk. I'm your unexpected host, Kevin O'Sullivan, and I'll be with you all the way to 7 o'clock. Stand by for 3 full throttle hours of breaking news, challenging views and dazzling debate. Get stuck in, get it off your chest, get on the phone and call me on 0344 499 1000, or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number, and I promise to play your message out. It is Friday, June the 6th. Here's what's coming up. She caused a sensation and a sharp intake of breath in the House of Commons with her debut question asking our pathetic Prime Minister if Britain should ban the burqa. Today, Reform UK's straight-talking new MP for Runcorn, Sarah Pochin, joins me to discuss why she chose to open her parliamentary account in such dramatic fashion. And I'll ask her why her question brought the Commons to a stunned silence and scared the living daylights out of two-tier Keir. Isn't this a debate that this country needs to have as a matter of urgency? Let me ask you, do you think we should ban the burqa? It's a yes from me, but what about you? 0344 499 1000. I'll also try to find out why Zia Yusuf suddenly quit as Reform chairman and why he declared that Sarah was dumb for bringing up the burqa issue, which, by the way, she very much isn't. In other news, we'll go live to the United States of America to find out what Fox News star and veteran Trump watcher Joe Concha makes of the extraordinary, explosive fallout between the president and his former first buddy, Elon Musk. With his incendiary tweets attacking his ex-best friend Donald, the world's richest man has acted, frankly, like the world's maddest man. What's going on? 0344 499 1000. Also this afternoon, a nice 80-year-old granddad takes his little dog for a stroll in the park and a bunch of toe-rag thugs beat him to death. As a result, the 15-year-old animal who murdered him gets 7 years, and his vicious little 13-year-old female accomplice walks free from court. OK, they're young, but does this punishment fit the crime? 0344 499 1000. No wonder tragic Bim Kohli's heartbroken family are furious. Why is British justice, once the envy of the world, turning into a sick joke? 0344 499 1000. Meanwhile, the timid two, Labour and the Tories, are still tying themselves up in knots over the European Convention of Human Rights, deluding themselves that by not leaving it they can somehow solve the migrant crisis. Good luck with that. What exactly do we get out of belonging to the ECHR? Anything? Why don't we just leave and make our own decisions about our own sovereign borders? 0344 499 1000. Plus, the Remainer newspaper that's given up banging the Brexit drum. And has time run out for the Time Lord? Has Doctor Who crashed and burned in a moronic inferno of BBC wokery? All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Friday afternoon together. And without further ado, let's go straight over to my first guest. Really pleased she's agreed to come on. It's Sarah Pochin, the MP, the new MP for Runcorn and Helsby, of course, Reform. Sarah, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. I've been dying to talk to you. I think everybody has. Well, first of all, I mean, I put my cards on the table there. I believe we should ban the burqa. I want to ask you what you thought. I burst out laughing the other day when you asked that. I thought it was a great question, a brilliant way to open your parliamentary account. You might as well make a mark. Now, when you asked that question, should we ban the burqa, Prime Minister, you terrified the living daylights out of him. We'll play that in just a second. Also, the House fell into a sort of hushed silence, as if you sort of stated, would the Prime Minister consider murdering every baby in this country, or something like that. Ridiculous, ridiculous. First of all, why did you decide to ask that question? And why do you think everybody's so scared of debating it? There are 22 countries in the world who have banned the burqa, including, as you pointed out in your question, several European countries and quite a few Muslim countries. So why does the House of Commons seem so terrified of this? And why did our pusillanimous, pathetic little Prime Minister run away from your question? I'm not going to follow her down that line, which, by the way, is an outrage. You're a representative of the people. You're asking the Prime Minister a question. He should damn well answer it. But why did you decide, Sarah, to start with that question?
Well, good afternoon, Kevin. The first thing I should say was this question was not just an off-the-cuff question. I think it was well framed. It was carefully thought through. And, of course, my colleagues sat next to me on the benches knew what I was going to ask. But it won't have escaped your notice, I'm sure, that in the short time I have been representing my constituents in Westminster, the briefs that I'm picking up are very much about public safety and about women's welfare. And those two issues are very much at the centre of this question. The burqa is a profoundly misogynistic item, in my view, and very offensive to our British culture. Keir Starmer himself in the last week has talked about this country being an island of strangers. Well, there's no better way to start to change that than to get rid of such items like a burqa, which is so distinctive and so divisive, and actually quite a threatening thing for British people to pass on the streets, or for children to have to come across in school, or whatever area of life it might be. I was a magistrate for 20 years, Kevin. If anybody had walked into my courts wearing such an item, proceedings would have been stopped until the item was removed. So it's very much about being standing up for what is right, standing up for our culture, and Reform is the only party that is prepared to put these tough questions in the one place that we should be able to debate these issues, and that is the Houses of Parliament.
Absolutely. Let's remind ourselves of that moment when you asked that question. So here you are posing a question to Tutia Keir.
Given the Prime Minister's desire to strengthen strategic alignment with our European neighbours, will he, in the interests of public safety, follow the lead of France, Denmark, Belgium and others and ban the burqa?
Yeah, here.
Oh. Prime Minister.
Can I welcome her to her place? But I'm not going to follow her down that line. But now she is here and safely in her place, perhaps she could tell her new party leader that his latest plan to bet £80 billion of unfunded tax cuts is no...
Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Thank you very much, Keir. I think it's a disgrace, Sarah, that was his response. He's the Prime Minister. You're a representative of the people. I don't think he should be allowed to just ignore your question. But why? That hushed silence. Oh, my God, what has she said? This is ridiculous. This is a debate that I think this nation urgently needs to have. And it's not a situation that is helped if we have a bunch of MPs who think it's sort of taboo. It's ridiculous.
Look, Kevin, that was the second time I've been able to ask the Prime Minister a direct question in the House. It's the second time he's replied in a dismissive way and a patronising way. So I'm sure next time I get on my feet and ask him a question, I hope he will be filled with dread. But the point is, I will come back to it. This is exactly what I was elected to do. I asked my constituents before my first very important milestone of having my first PMQ to the Prime Minister. I asked my constituents what type of issues they wanted me to raise, and as I said all through the election campaign, made very clear the issue of cultural integration, the issue of women's safety due to the high number of illegal immigrants we have here in Runcorn, where I am today, is it's fundamentally at the top of the issues that my constituents raise with me. So that's why the question was asked, and I defend exactly why I asked it. In terms of the House falling silent, well, PMQs is so boring these days, but not when a Reform MP gets on their feet.
Yeah, you certainly put the cat among the pigeons, there's no doubt about that. Now, you said that all your fellow Reform MPs knew that you were going to ask that question, and I happen to know that as a fact as well. But Zia Youssef, the party chairman, it looks to me, didn't know that you were going to ask that question, and he dismissed your question as dumb, or he dismissed you as dumb for asking it, which I think is very unjustified. But why do you think he did that?
Look, there is a difference between the role of the party chairman and the role of the MPs. At the end of the day, my ultimate boss is, of course, Nigel, and that's who signed off the question, as did the chief whip. But I would just like to make it very clear, I'm sorry that Zia's gone. Zia has been a tremendous support to me and counsel to me throughout the last 3 months. And I respect him enormously. You know what? We work in a very high-pressured situation every minute of every day, and their long days is very pressurised, particularly when every other political party wants to see the death of reform. They want to see us trip up. This is a small issue that should, with any other party, would have gone unnoticed. But the fact that it's reform, everybody wants to see us fail. Look at the Conservatives. What was it? 5 prime ministers in 7 years, or 7 prime ministers in 5 years? I don't know what the statistics was. It got so ridiculous.
They worked
even
on the
I
principle.
can't remember.
Yeah, they worked on the principle, not the quality of your prime ministers, the quantity. That was what mattered. Yeah.
Exactly. So all I want to say on the whole Zia issue is I've lost somebody who was a huge support and counsel to me, and I'm very sorry about that. But politics is a fast-moving game. It's a tough game. We will move on. We have plenty of excellent people ready to step up to that role. Somebody will be appointed, and we move on. And at the end of the day, it makes no difference to the population of this country. They are behind reform. They're all looking to reform, to stand up for them and say the things that the Tories won't say and haven't said for the last 14 years, and that this Labour government are backtracking and U-turning on, and all their promises to the people. Well, you know what? Reform are the only party now that are the party of opposition, and in 4 years' time, we are still marching towards Downing Street.
Certainly you've got the momentum behind you. Did it hurt your feelings that Zia Youssef quoted that you were dumb?
No, I know Zia quite well, and I'm fully aware that he didn't mean that I personally was dumb. And I've spoken to him, of course I have, since. As I say, our relationships at this level of politics are intense, but, we get to know each other very well. I have the highest respect for him, and I know he respects me.
In terms now, it wasn't. I know people, so I know for a fact it's being bandied around by lefties that as soon as Sarah Poshin asked that question about the burqa, Muslim Zia Youssef said that's enough, I'm leaving. Well, I know that wasn't the reason he left. There are much deeper reasons than that. Why do you think he chose to leave?
I just think that, I don't know, but I think that he was tired. It's a very high-pressured game. He has done remarkable things for this party. He has increased the membership. He's built the not associated, we call them branches in reform, but he's built the ground structure. He achieved that incredible result, not just the by-election, which he was very much a part of the team here for me, but also he achieved the 677 councillors. What he's done for this party is extraordinary, and he is a wealth of information in his specialised subject. But I just think, you know what, it's like I say, it's a high pressurised game, and maybe Zia just thought it was time to turn his attention elsewhere. But everything he's done for this party has been absolutely fantastic, and we thank him for it.
Great. Now, subsequent to your question in the House of Commons, Richard Tice, the deputy leader of Reform UK, he has proposed that it is time that the nation, as I'm saying, and I'm sure you agree, that it is time, as a matter of urgency, that this nation had a debate about whether or not to ban the burqa. I think you've made your feelings plain. Is there a Reform UK policy on this?
What Reform are trying to do, what I wanted to do, and I think I've absolutely achieved that, is to open up the debate. And that's exactly what we've done. That's, isn't it great that you and I are talking about it now? All the media's covering this, and that's what we need to do. And only Reform would have had the, the courage, if you like, in Parliament to stand up and start this debate. So what I've done now is I've put in a request to have a debate on this very issue in Westminster Hall. I have to wait and see if I get that debate through. But I will not stop pushing for this to be debated at the highest level on behalf of every citizen in this country. People have mixed views on it, of course they do, but that is the whole point of our democracy. And isn't it wonderful that we still live in a country where we can debate these really difficult issues and everybody can have their say without fear or favour? That's what this country's about. That's what Reform is about. And all I'm doing is driving through, and there'll be lots more that I'll be bringing to Parliament, but driving through a difficult issue which needs debating.
I absolutely agree. So for the record, this is what I think about the burqa. With respect to Islam, to all of our Muslims, the 4 million Muslims who live here. As I say, there are 22 countries around the world that have banned it for a variety of reasons. I would like it banned for the obvious security reasons. Recently, a woman in a burqa driving a car was pulled up, and it turned out to be a 12-year-old boy. So that's just one example of why when you can't see people's faces, that opens up a Pandora's box of problems in terms of security.
Yeah, and can I just say one thing?
Yeah.
Kevin, I'll just say one thing. Well, I'll give you two little very quick stories. Yesterday in Parliament, I was walking towards work, and a policeman stopped me and said, "Thank you. Thank you for raising this issue on the behalf of the police. You've been brave, you've raised it, because this is about national security. As you've just said, anyone can put a burqa on and be in disguise. It could be a terrorist that's got a bomb underneath it. How does that help the police? It doesn't help the police. But the fact that a policeman actually bothered to stop me and say thank you." And the other little story was, a constituent said to me that at one point him and his wife lived in Saudi Arabia for a short amount of time. If his wife ever had any of her arms or legs, even the lower limbs, on show, the police would come up with sticks and bash this poor woman, this Western woman, on the body with their sticks. So they won't put up with it in their country. Why do we put up with it in our country?
Yeah, that's my other objection. That's my other reason. Tell me what you think, that I think we should ban the burqa. I think it's demeaning to women. I think it turns women into second-class citizens. And I think the reasons for the burqa are medieval, ludicrous, that if a man can view a woman's face, he will be consumed by an impossible lust and attack her. I mean, it's all mumbo-jumbo. It's nonsense in a modern country. Now, I know pragmatic modern Muslims, they feel the same as me. Do you agree with those reasons for banning it as well?
I absolutely do. I think it's like I started off this interview by saying it's a profoundly misogynistic item of clothing. It's against everything we believe in this country, and it literally is intimidating. I find it intimidating when I walk past these people. But not only that, Kevin, what about our children in schools that are either faced with fellow pupils or teachers even that have got these items on? That's no way, one, to teach our children about culture, but also to what an environment to put children in. And these are all the issues that spring off from this one topic. And we have to deal with it. And in my opinion, bring on the debate, and I will be championing the cause to ban this item of clothing on the streets, in public places in this country.
Sarah, fantastic to talk to you, and well done for asking that question. Thank you so much. Sarah Pochin there, the Reform UK for Runcorn and Helsby. What do you reckon of what she said? 03444991000. When we come back, Elon and Donald, they're at each other's throats. We'll go across the Atlantic to find out what Fox News star Joe Concha thinks.
Clearly there was some difference of opinion of some sort over the burqa question, but this is, I think, the inexperience that shows. I mean, he's come in, done all this hard work, created the structures, all this stuff. Politics isn't like banking. It is a very different thing. You drive people to the edge, you push, but this is vocational. A volunteer party is very different from a very high-paid group of people. And you can push very high-paid people very hard. It's much harder to push volunteers that hard, and I think sometimes something was lost in that translation.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, we need to talk about Donald and Elon. Well, they're at each other's throats. There's talk now. Must have been following the war of words on social media. The worst of which was when Elon Musk tweeted, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, DJT." That's Donald Trump, of course. But that was at the end of an exchange where Musk was calling for Trump to be impeached, and Donald Trump was obviously saying the guy's losing his mind, he's a big disappointment, and so on and so forth. So the president and his first buddy have fallen out in spectacular style. There's talk of a rapprochement phone call being arranged, so we don't quite know what's going on. But to really get to grips with this story, a man who's in the know, he is Fox News star Joe Concha, author of The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. It's out there now. You should buy it. It's good. Welcome, Joe. Good to talk to you, mate.
Great to see you, Kevin. Boy, it's a slow day. What should we talk about?
Well, there I was presenting my little show last night that you've been kind enough to grace on several occasions, and then suddenly this erupted, and it got worse and worse and worse. Well, frankly, what's going on, Joe?
That's the thing. Usually I come on your show, Kevin, I'll give you a pretty definitive answer as far as what may be going on with XYZ. This is like an Agatha Christie kind of mystery as far as where this came from exactly. I mean, I was at Mar-a-Lago for New Year's Eve. I was at the president's table. It was part of the book as far as interviewing him and getting some photos for the cover and so on. And Elon Musk and Donald Trump were seated right next to each other, and for 3 hours, they were talking to each other like straight. Like you thought you were looking at best friends. And I know Trump has had some fallouts with some people he's been friends with, but there I'm like, that's as solid as a rock. And then sure enough, this happens. I think, you know, if I were to guess, Elon Musk is not happy, obviously, around this big, beautiful bill, not cutting enough in terms of government spending. But Donald Trump is basically a fan of the saying, you know, politics is the art of the possible. And there just isn't the votes there to get the kind of cuts in this bill where it could pass. Like, this is the only way that Donald Trump could get a win here, get the tax cuts that he wants, deregulation, border security, all that fun stuff. And then in a future bill, that's where the DOGE cuts could come in for Elon Musk. And I would think that was explained to him, but he didn't seem to be very happy about this. And then they go publicly the way he did and personally the way he did, especially with that Epstein files allegation, which is utterly ridiculous because I'm certain that Democrats would have used that against Donald Trump if it were true, I don't know, 10 years ago. So this is where we are. As you said, there may be a conciliatory phone call today or over the weekend. Either way, I think that the relationship probably is permanently damaged in terms of Trump and Musk ever working together again. But if Trump gets the big, beautiful bill passed, and this may push some Republicans to actually take his side on this over Musk, he ultimately wins the battle.
Here's my take on it. I mean, this is why Elon Musk is upset, because he's basically saying, I've spent 6 months doging the hell out of Washington, you know, saving billions. And then along comes the president and says, here's my big, beautiful bill, $3.8 trillion worth of spending. And Musk goes, well, hang on a second, that negates everything I've saved over the past 6 months. What was I wasting my time for? This is, you know, absurdly too big. I mean, I think it's a big bill. If I was Donald Trump, I wouldn't have called it a beautiful bill, because conservatives all over the states and on this side of the Atlantic are going, that is too big. That is way too big and will plunge America into, I believe, $2.2 trillion worth of debt. So that's the nature of Elon Musk's disquiet here. What's Trump playing at with such a big, beautiful bill? At least he could have called it something else, couldn't he?
Oh, that's true. It matched the title of my book, which really worked out well. I didn't even plan for that to happen. So thank you. That sold a couple of copies. Just to get nerdy, here's the thing. This bill deals with mandatory spending based on the rules in Congress. The DOGE cuts through Elon are discretionary spending, and they couldn't be put in here even if Trump and Republicans wanted to. So I think that's where the disconnect appears to be. And overall, here are the choices if you're the Republican Party. Either you don't pass this bill and then the spending stays as high as it is and you don't get the tax cut, or you get the tax cut and the spending goes along with it. So nothing is perfect. And again, if they could do other bills down the line that do the cuts that Elon wants, then do it. But to put it all in here, it's just technically it's not possible. So I'm sorry if I got in the weeds there a little bit, but that's where this is at.
Let's talk about Elon Musk. Steve Bannon's been sounding off, saying this guy is unstable. He's also saying he should be deported, but that's going to be a bit difficult because he's a citizen of the United States. But unstable, I feel, given what we saw last night and various events in the past few months, unstable, I think, is a justified allegation or a justified thing to say about Elon Musk. Now, this guy is running 3 massive businesses in the United States of America. Now, I don't know what Elon was up to yesterday. I don't know what may have been affecting his thinking, if you catch my drift. But I believe he woke up this morning and thought, what the hell have I done? Because you're running 3 major businesses in the United States of America, and you've just basically called the United States of America's president some kind of paedophile on Twitter, as you say, an outrageous allegation to make. You have self-harmed, self-destroyed in a spectacular fashion, haven't you? Now, Donald, I don't think is a particularly vituperative man. But he's got the power to kind of ruin Musk, and he's made noises now about maybe we'll take all of those space contracts away from him and so on and so forth. Do you feel that Musk woke up this morning, as I said, and thought, oh my God, what did I do?
Wow, we've all been there, right?
Yeah.
For me, sophomore year of college, basically, almost every weekend. But overall, yeah, that's the thing, right? That Trump calls himself a stable genius, and we appear to have an unstable genius here with Elon Musk, and that's the thing. You know, the New York Times did have a report that was out last week based on anonymous sources, so I didn't take too much grains of salt with it, but it did talk about alleged drug use while on the campaign trail, and then you see the way Elon Musk acts sometimes. It's unorthodox. I'm not going to come on your show and accuse him of having some sort of problem, but the reporting is there, and there are some actions sometimes that do make you scratch your head and say, why would he do that? This is a war that he cannot win, obviously, and now if Donald Trump starts pulling contracts, we saw what happened to Tesla stock just on Thursday. Yep. I mean, that was a massive sell-off. That is billions of dollars out of Elon Musk's pocket, all self-inflicted. And I'll give Trump credit. For a couple of days, he didn't respond when he always would in these situations. I think he tried to wait it out and eventually has to say something or else he looks like a wimp, for lack of a better term. But yeah, Elon Musk started this. Let's be very clear about that. And
you know Donald Trump well. Does he bear grudges? I mean, do you think he'll sort of forgive Elon for this? I mean, as you say, they're not going to be bosom buddies again. But do you think Donald might actually go for him and punish him for what he did yesterday? Or will he just say, leave him alone, let him get on with it?
I think if Musk offers some sort of apology, Kevin, in some way that satisfies Trump, and the big, beautiful bill passes, so Trump ultimately wins the battle, like I said, yeah, he's done this before, right? I mean, you look at Marco Rubio, for example, who he called Little Marco on the campaign trail in 2016, just went after him completely. And now Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State under Donald Trump in the United States. So that's remarkable. He even had Bill Maher to the White House. Bill Maher said some of the worst things you could possibly say about a person in Donald Trump, and Trump broke bread with them, and they actually had a good time. So yeah, I think ultimately Trump doesn't have Irish amnesia like I do, which is you forget everything but the grudge. But I think that ultimately, if it benefits him, he'll do it. I'm half Irish.
So Joe, last question: how much, when they have this phone call, put it on speaker in the Oval Office, how much would you pay to be in the Oval Office when that phone call unfolds?
I'm thinking kids' college fund, Kevin. I think that's about
$1 million easily. Joe, it's fantastic to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. Joe Concha, the brilliant Joe Concha, Fox News star, author of The Greatest Comeback Ever, Inside Trump's Big Beautiful Campaign. As he said, that is a coincidence. Trump goes on to call his spending bill, the $3.8 trillion spending bill. He calls it the Big Beautiful Bill. Happens to be in the title of Joe's book, as he said. That'll sell a few copies. But it's not a big, beautiful bill. It's big, way too big, but it's not beautiful. And I think that's at the root of why Elon Musk is so angry. And also, Steve Bannon's right. He's not stable. He's not stable. What he did yesterday was just mad. As I said in my monologue, the world's richest man acted like the world's maddest man. Next up, we are going to talk about the terrible case of that poor old guy who was murdered by a bunch of thugs taking his dog for a walk in the park, and the punishment meted down to the ringleader and his vicious little female sidekick. I call it a punishment. It barely was. What is going on? We'll talk about that after this break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. This is the saddest story, one of the saddest stories I ever heard. You know, I'm a tough old hack, a Fleet Street veteran, and sometimes stories even bring a tear to my eye, and this one does. A nice old 80-year-old granddad taking his little dog for a walk in the park near Leicester, where he lived, and a bunch of thugs, little animals, you know, absolute monsters, attack him and kill him. Yesterday, in court, the ringleader, a 15-year-old little monster animal, we can't name them because they're underage, guess what? Wow, what a punishment. He's a murderer. He's a murderer. He's convicted of murder. He got 7 years in a young offenders detention centre, and his 13-year-old female sidekick, vicious little thing, she got nothing. She walked free from court. That, if you ask me, makes British justice a sick joke. I know they're young, but we can't let offences, crimes, heinous crimes like this go unpunished, because that basically is what happens. Does that crime, the murder of an old guy, a granddad, there he is, Bim Coley, taking his dog for a walk, do the people who did that, does that punishment, 7 years for one of them, he'll be out in 3, and he'll only be 18 then, and nothing for the other one walked 3, does that punishment fit the crime? This is Bim's heartbroken daughter talking yesterday after this joke of a sentence.
The death of my dad has left a hole in our heart. Sorry, a hole in our family. A hole that can never be filled because of the actions of 2 teenagers on That Sunday evening last September. I believe on that day, the two teenagers made a choice. The teenager boy chose to attack my dad, and the girl chose to film him being attacked. They knew what they were doing. I feel angry, disappointed that the sentence they have both received today does not, I believe, reflect the severity of the crime they committed. However, I understand the judge has guidelines, but they have taken a life, and as a result, our lives have been changed forever. When they are released, they still have their full lives ahead of them. They can rebuild their lives. We can't.
That's Susan Coley, the heartbroken daughter of Bim Coley, 80-year-old granddad, murdered by a 15-year-old while his 13-year-old sidekick filmed it. 7 years and nothing. Let's talk to former Met Police Detective Mike Neville. Mike, as I say, I think this case is heartbreaking, and that punishment, you know, Susan Coley there saying, well, the judge has guidelines. Well, we need to change the damn guidelines then, don't we? This is ridiculous. I mean, I know they're young, but frankly, a crime like this, lock them up and throw the key away. That's my view.
Well, definitely, it is absolutely dreadful, and I do express my absolute condolences to the family. It's absolutely horrible. Just to clarify, they're actually convicted of manslaughter, and this is why the judge's guidelines would have been even less. So manslaughter being doing a very stupid thing, which then results in the death of somebody. The problem here, of course, is with a very elderly gentleman, is there could have been all sorts of complications that led to his death. But they have caused the death of a nice old man who was simply going about his business, walking his dog. Now, as you say, the 7 years, when you work it out with 40% reduction, that's 33 months. It isn't even 3 years in imprisonment. And we need to look at this because time and time again, we see people who take somebody's life walking away with what amounts to months in prison. And as Susan Coley has said, is that they'll just be released and they'll be back out, and the boy will be released and he'll be 18. And the ridiculous thing about the girl who seemingly egged all this on, she was the one who had violent videos on her phone. She egged it all on, and they said, oh, well, we can't put her in custody because it might impact on her schooling. Well, surely she should have thought of that before she encouraged this young lad to put on a balaclava and go hitting this frail old gentleman. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it just makes a mockery of justice that taking a life, ruining a family, amounts to either no prison sentence or a few months inside.
Yeah, well, I say, yeah, I know what you mean about manslaughter. That's because they're kids. It was murder. They killed him. They killed him. It was murder. You know. So this is all legal niceties. The poor little things. We've got to treat them nicely. It's racial as well. They were hurling racial abuse at him. Nice old granddad taking his dog for a walk in the park on a Sunday evening. Thank you very much. We've got to do something about this. This makes a mockery of British justice, doesn't it?
I think that the other thing as well we've got to look at, Kevin, is the involvement, what the parents like here, because you know, we had the Prime Minister trying to get people to watch that adolescent video where the parents of the kids involved are two hard-working, you know, people who do a decent thing. I'll put my mortgage on the fact that the parents of these two are nothing like that at all. And they have got to be held to some account as well, that they have brought up these characters who do these most wicked things. So, you know, we can't always guide our children, but I bet if you look into these people's lives, they'll be known to social services, they'll have previous convictions, they're allowed to roam around and do what they want, and that simply isn't good enough, because we've become a society now. If we can't take our dog out for a walk on a Sunday night in the park without being set upon by balaclava-clad youths, where are we going to go with this? This is really bad. I mean, that tragic video, that's just an ordinary old man with his nice little dog. And it's just, where is Britain going where these things go on? These events would have been very, very rare. Yeah. But they're just becoming more and more common, and people are becoming more and more afraid to go out, and that's just not good for society.
And why do you think these kind of horrors are becoming more and more common, Mike? It's because of this. because these kids know they're not really going to be punished. This punishment will send a message to other little thugs. Oh, it's okay to kill people in the park because, you know, you get a couple of years inside. In fact, if you're this girl, you don't even go inside. You know, Susan Coley talking about the judge's guidelines. Well, the guidelines would easily have encompassed banging this 13-year-old girl up, and yet he let her walk.
Look at the messages we're sending. Look at the case of PC Longcastle down in Bournemouth, who stopped another 15-year-old youth, recovered a really vicious double-bladed knife. And what are the consequences of that? That the youth isn't prosecuted for the possession of a double-bladed knife, but the police officer loses his job. So those sort of messages are sent out to these feral youth that you can just simply do what you want, you can just take on the police, and even if the police manage to get you to court, you're going to receive an absolute minimal sentence. Society has got to really look at this. We've been badly let down by politicians and the establishment who always consider the convicts, they always consider the criminals. Yeah. To them, they are the victims. These are victims of society. They forget that poor old Bim Coley he is the real victim. His family are the real victims. The killers are the offenders, not the victims of society that too many left-wing politicians imagine them to be.
Exactly right. And when these ludicrously, outrageously lenient sentences were handed down, the girl, the 13-year-old girl who got away with it, went over and hugged the mother of the little thug who got 7 years, as if something terrible had. Oh, he's 7 years. Oh dear, what a shame. You know, as you say, he'll be out before he's 18. And the argument will be, oh, well, they're only young and we mustn't ruin their lives. I say ruin their lives. They just took someone else's lives. The punishment should be the ruination of their lives. Simple as that. It's not rocket science. Mike, great to talk to you as always. That's a former Met Police detective, Mike Neville. What do you think? What do you think? Let me know what you think. Shouldn't those kids, the 13-year-old girl and the 15-year-old boy, a couple of little animals, shouldn't they have got more than 7 years in a detention centre, and in the girl's case, nothing at all? Walked free. Unbelievable. What do you reckon of that? We've got to do something about that, haven't we? 0344 499 1000. When we come back, we're going to be talking to the Sun's Deputy Political Editor, Ryan Saby, about the shenanigans involving the European Convention on Human Rights. We'll talk about that next. Stay tuned.
The question has always been, how best to serve the country. I mean, I left UKIP to argue for a referendum. It was only because we got a referendum we were able to actually leave the European Union in the end. Nigel is very strong, very driven. Not everyone can keep up with him. I think you do tend to attract people from all sorts of walks of life when they're a new party. Not all of that works out.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Should we ban the burqa? 03444991000. Let me know what you think. Right, let's talk about the European Convention on Human Rights. That's that organisation we belong to. Its legal branch is the European Court of Human Rights. That's the European Court that bosses us around, tells us who we can deport and can't deport. Basically controls our sovereign borders, whereas we don't. And for some reason, our two main timid parties are terrified to leave it. Kemi Badenoch, having previously said she'll never leave it, is now kind of regrouping and is prepared to consider leaving it. She wants a review. Meanwhile, Keir Starmer, his idea is we'll stay in the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights, but the bits we don't like, we won't obey. Well, you can't do that, Keir. It's as simple as that. It's an in or out situation. We should leave the ECHR for one reason, because unless we leave the ECHR, we cannot solve our migrant crisis. We're going to talk to Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun, in just a second. But before we do, let's have a look at Kemi talking about how the Tories want to approach this escalating issue.
We will likely need to leave, because I am yet to see a clear and coherent way to fix this within our current legal structures. But I won't commit my party to leaving the ECHR or other treaties without a clear plan to do so and without a full understanding of all the consequences. We saw that holding a referendum without a plan to get Brexit done led to years of wrangling and endless arguments until we got it sorted in 2019.
Welcome to the show, Ryan Saby, Deputy Political Editor at The Sun. Ryan, what on earth is she talking about? I mean, this is in or out. She has always prevaricated on this. At first, she used to say, oh, we mustn't leave. Now she's beginning to say, well, we'll have a review. And possibly, likely, we will have to leave. Why can't she just cut to the chase and say we need to leave the ECHR? Starmer's solution is ridiculous. We're not going to leave, but we're going to pick and choose the bits we'll obey. Well, that's not going to work. That just will not work. No wonder people are flocking to Reform UK, because they are giving us a straight answer. We will leave this organisation and make our own decisions. What is wrong with Kemi Badenoch? Why can't she just say, ECHR, bye-bye, it's been nice to know you?
I think one of the things for Kemi Badenoch, I think she's building up to that moment. So what I think she wants to give the impression of, that she is making careful consideration of all these policies, whether it comes to net zero, whether it comes to immigration, that she is going through the process and there is a sort of route to that, and the end point and what comes after it, there's a fully fledged plan. So this is why we haven't seen her today saying, do you know what, we're definitely leaving. And I think what's going to be happening now is that she's commissioned the expert Lord Wolfson to have a look at this. Now, she says this will be a short, sharp review lasting sort of 3, 4, 5 months. Now, for me,
that's not short. That's really long.
I know. In politics, that is short and sharp, Kevin. And And so what I think will happen is that I think we'll probably lead up to a moment at party conference that sort of ties in with that kind of time frame where she will leave. I mean, she has sort of signaled that she wants to leave. Chris Philp this morning, he was out on the airwaves sort of saying that it's time to leave. But I think I think for Kemi Badenoch, who has that sort of scientist, engineer background, she just wants to dot the I's and cross the T's. But the whole point of being a politician is making quick and decisive answers. And that's why I sort of think that maybe, is that why the public is just sort of losing faith a little bit with her, and certainly sort of MPs that I'm speaking to just wonder where she's going and which sort of direction she's heading into.
Yeah, she's just dillying and dallying. It's ridiculous, as if she's terrified to actually sort of cut the rope and say, right, that's it, bye-bye ECHR. The truth is, Ryan, as millions of people know in this country, unless we leave the European Convention on Human Rights, we will never solve the migrant crisis. Worse still, we will never be able to deport paedophiles, criminals, foreigners who've come here and broken our laws and gone to jail, because they're going to come out, claim Article 8 of the ECHR, right to a family life, and they stay. We have got to be able to make our sovereign decisions about whether or not jailed paedophiles are allowed to stay in this country. The fact that we can't is frankly a national scandal.
Yeah, and in recent weeks we've heard that Keir Starmer is very keen on sort of amending or looking as having some kind of review on this Article 8, this rights to the family life. Now, you just wonder whether that's not really going to cut the mustard, because there was this big announcement the other week, the immigration white paper, and how they deal with they deal with this. And in there was a clause that was underlined. It was in bold. We're going to look at this, the Article 8 thing, but actually, does it cut the mustard? Will it actually cut to the thrust of trying to deal with the problem? Not really, because one of the things is, if you want to get a grip with this, unless you've got bilateral deals with all these countries around the world and all across Europe, it's very, very difficult to grasp the situation.
Yeah, you can't sign up to a contract and say, oh, that clause 8. We don't like that bit, so we'll take the rest. But Article 8, we're going to sort of serially ignore. That is even worse than Kemi's approach. But of course, Labour will never leave the ECHR because it's Keir Starmer, the role of international law, his god. So Labour, forget it. And frankly, I know, I'm sure you do too. Kemi ought to realise that I think most Tories, nearly all Tories, just want to cut the umbilical cord, get the hell out of the ECHR and move forward there. Don't you think that that's what she needs to realise?
Yeah, well, I think you look at where the support is hemorrhaging towards Nigel Farage's Reform Party, that Nigel Farage has been absolutely clear on the subject, and I just think that Kemi Badenoch just probably needs to be a little bit clearer as well, just to get that groundswell of support and that heartbeat of the party moving in the...
She's got to get going though, Ryan. She's got to get going. But good to talk to you, mate. That's Ryan Savey from The Sun. When we come back, Mark Little will join us to talk about all the big stories. Stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Breaking news. Bargain hunt art expert Ogonochuko Ojiri, he's 53, has been jailed at the Old Bailey for 2.5 years after failing to report a series of high-value art sales to a man suspected of financing militant group Hezbollah. Essentially, he made sales to someone that he knew was funding Hezbollah, the proscribed terrorist organisation. Popular star on Bargain Hunt, so quite a fall from grace for him. So breaking news there. Now, in this hour, in a little while, we're going to be talking again about the burqa. We'll talk to someone who believes that to ban it would be wrong. And also we'll all be talking about the defence shambles that Labour are presiding over right now. So basically, you've seen the progression. It's like Keir Starmer, we're on a war footing, be terrified, we'll save you. And we're going to get to 2.5% of GDP spending on defence within 2 years. We're actually on about 2.3 now. Then NATO turned around and said, well, that's no good. Oh, well, maybe 3%. We'll get to 3. When? Oh, that's just an ambition. So that's not going to happen. And now NATO have turned around and said, well, actually, you better make it 3.5%. And Labour have sort of said, oh, yeah, well, maybe. Well, the thing is, first of all, what the hell are they talking about? We need something concrete in these turbulent times. You can't just keep giving it these vagaries. Yeah, we've got this kind of ambition to spend a bit more, which means it's not going to happen. Secondly, given that NATO are demanding 3.5%, I've got to tell you, folks, there's only one way that Labour, our government, pay for 3.5% spending on defence. You guessed it, more tax rises. You can bet your farm on it. There are going to be tax rises in the autumn as sure as night follows day, as sure as Rachel Reeves is going to get sacked. And that's pretty damn certain before too long. So all of that, and then towards the end of the hour, it's your turn. Get your calls in, 0344 499 1000, and we'll have a chat. It's good to talk on Talk. Should we ban the burqa? What's going on with the ECHR? Do you fancy more tax hikes? Is Doctor Who finished? 0344 499 1000. Now, let's go straight to my first guest and we'll go through some of the big stories of the day. He is the director of the Popular Conservatism organisation, Mark Littlewood. Mark, great to have you on the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Kevin. Great to be with you.
Well, first of all, let's talk about the reform ruction. Get your take on it. Zia Yousaf quit suddenly, rather dramatically last night. Now, ostensibly, they're saying, because Sarah Pochin, the new Reform UK MP, stood up in the Commons and asked a question of the Prime Minister, would he consider banning the burqa? But I think you probably know, I certainly do, it goes a lot deeper than that. That's not what it is. Now, he's gone. People are sort of framing this as the end of the world. But politics, these things tend to pass. Do you think it's damaging, I think, but do you think it's a death blow to reform?
No, it's not a death blow to reform, and I say that as a member of the Conservatives, a rival political party. I think most members of other political parties have looked on in awe, frankly, over the past 6 or 8 months at the sort of progress reform has made. And Nigel Farage seems to be building the car as he's driving it, which is a pretty difficult and dangerous thing to do. So it's not that surprising that occasionally a passenger or two fall out. I think what Zia Yousaf, who I've only met fleetingly a couple of times, so I'm basing this very much on second-hand reports, but I think what he brought to reform, which they might find it a little hard to replace, is Nigel Farage didn't want to deal quite understandably, with the nuts and bolts of actually running the party, the membership database, who's the chairman of an association, who do you expel, how do you vet each and every candidate, what leaflets do you put out when in a by-election, all of that sort of stuff. And Zia Youssef was the man who did all of that. He was effectively the chief executive of the party, even though he was known as the chairman. And again, second-hand reports, as I say, I've only spent a few minutes in Zia's time, but I think that he was the type, and I've come across these quite a lot in politics and in think tanks, who think that you can automatically bring business practices from the entrepreneurial sector into the politics sector. You're used to having, I don't know, a regional sales team, and if you're the boss man, everybody jumps to do your bidding, and remuneration is what motivates people, and hitting profits in the bottom line. That doesn't transfer perfectly into politics, where people are often giving their time for free. Understandably, people in politics are extremely opinionated, views vary, and sometimes trying to bring pure business practices, some of which are good, you know, spend money wisely, keep an eye on the bottom line, make sure there are clear chains of command. But if you take it too far, you start to get people's backs up. And a lot of what I've heard is he was getting quite a lot of people's backs up. So I expect there's more behind it than merely Sarah Poshin's comment about banning the burqa.
Well, I know there's a lot more behind it. It goes a lot deeper than that. But in terms of that question, now I also know that, well, Sarah Poshin has just been on the show, and she told me, but I knew previously, that all the MPs knew she was going to ask that question. So it was a sort of coordinated effort. Wouldn't it have been a good idea to tell the chairman? Because he clearly didn't know. He didn't like it. And that's when he tweeted that she was dumb to ask that question. And apparently, as Sarah was telling me, that they were actually quite close. So I think he got rather emotionally worked up about it all. But shouldn't the sort of left hand know what the right hand's doing in an organised political party?
Yeah.
And furthermore, Mark, you know, we still don't quite know what Reform's policy actually is on the burqa. It is, I totally, Richard Tice came out subsequently saying, you know, it's important that we have a national debate on this. Couldn't agree more. But, and Sarah Poshin said to me, she's fervently against the burqa. She absolutely wants to ban it. But that doesn't seem necessarily to be Reform's official policy. So shouldn't they get their act together with this sort of thing?
Yeah, good couple of questions, Kevin. Look, on the who should you tell about what that you're going to say in the chamber of the House of Commons, good point, good question. And I think it still speaks a little bit to Reform being a bit of a ramshackle army, that lines of control and command aren't known. So should the parliamentary party of five effectively operate independently, or do they need to run things through people in party HQ? I presume they tipped off the press officer of Reform UK, for example. I don't know, but that would be standard practice. But you wouldn't necessarily run it past the chairman of the party. I don't think Kemi Badenoch, for example, runs her likely questions past the two Tory chairmen. So, but it probably is still a bit making it up as they go along. I'd be surprised if they've got a protocol in place. On the burqa ban, yeah, look, it's one I struggle with as well, because the kind of my libertarian-leaning half says people should be able to wear whatever they want, within reason, I suppose, but pretty much whatever they want. The other part of me says, are we making specific carve-outs for a particular religious minority? And therefore, do you move to, which is what Sarah Poshin's question went to, that you're not specifying the burqa, you're actually saying sort of facial coverings, for example, in the same way that we ban people going into banks wearing either a balaclava or a motorcycle helmet. Okay? But if you're going to ban facial coverings, well, this starts to get a bit tricky. I mean, imagine trying to police Halloween, for example. You know, are you allowed to get on a bus in fancy dress? So I'm quite intrigued that they've started this debate. You're right, I don't think they've got a policy on it, but I don't think anybody else has either. So it's a kind of another example of them, without having a sort of fully thought out solution, they've done quite a good job of grabbing the headlines.
I mean, I'm with you. I'm kind of torn because yeah, I'm a bit of a libertarian myself, and my feeling is that, you know, what business is it of a government what anybody chooses to wear? That said, you know, I had a debate on my show the other night with a couple of women, and the woman who was not in favour of a ban, she said, well, it's not a question of whether or not we like the burqa. And actually, I thought about it and I said to her, do you know what? You're wrong. It is a question of whether or not we like the burqa. So obviously, there are the security reasons. You know, we can't really have people allowed to completely cover their faces. I was telling Sarah Poshin, there was a story a couple of days ago that a car being driven erratically by a woman in a burqa, a full cover, was pulled up by the cops. They took the damn thing off, and inside was a 12-year-old boy. That's just one example of why covering up faces can cause a problem. Yeah. But then again, we have to think about the burqa in its religious terms, and what I don't like about it, and Sarah agreed with me, is I think it demeans women. I think it turns them into second-class citizens. I think the ones that have to wear the full thing, I mean, they are cut off from life. They can't really get a proper job or anything like that. I don't like that, and I don't like the kind of medieval reason that they have to wear this, which is that should men be able to see their faces, they will be consumed by an uncontrollable lust and leap and defile these women. That is just ridiculous in the 21st century. So I think at a certain point, as has happened in 22 countries around the world, quite a few in Europe and quite a few Muslim countries, a government maybe has to stand up and say, well, do we like this? Are we going to sanction a religion or the kind of imprisoning of women in this garment for stupid, ridiculous medieval reasons?
Yeah,
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I think that's quite a compelling argument. I mean, the thing for me, again, with my sort of libertarian tendencies, is it comes down to a matter of choice. I mean, there's all sorts of things people might wear that might offend me or irritate me, but that's my problem, not theirs. If they want to wear it, again, within reason, if they want to wear it. So the issue hinges here, doesn't it, Kevin, on are the women really consenting to wear it? And we might say if they were really consenting to wear it and they felt strongly about it and its religious significance and they were willing to take the risk that it might harm them in job interviews, in the same way if you go into a job interview dressed extremely scruffily or with your hair in some extraordinary fashion, you might be prejudiced against. If they're really taking the choice themselves, I'd be comfortable with it. But I think you make a good point, or I'm inferring one. Are they really consenting to it? And that seems devilishly difficult to work out. I mean, we can't go up to each and every one of them and ask, because those that aren't consenting or are worried about it probably wouldn't tell you. So it is a particularly difficult issue. But wouldn't it be odd, Kevin, if we moved from a country just 2 or 3 years ago in which face coverings were mandatory during COVID to one in which they were prohibited? Yeah. Perhaps that would really be a U-turn for the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I always thought during the lockdown, the COVID crisis, if somebody burst into a bank intending to rob it, how would they know? You know, because they just look like everybody else. Let's move on. Now, let's talk about the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. Both the main parties tying themselves up in knots about this. Keir Starmer's solution to this escalating crisis. I mean, I'm sure you agree with me, or maybe you don't, but my stance is we have to leave the European Convention on Human Rights because if we don't, we have no chance whatsoever of solving the migrant crisis. We have to make our own decisions. That's my feeling. Now, Keir Starmer's solution is just pathetic. It's ridiculous. We'll stay in the ECHR. We will be bound by the rules of the ECHR, but the ones that we don't like, we'll ignore that. So Clause 8, the Article 8, the right to a family. No. That's just ridiculous. You can't say, you signed this contract. Yeah, but I didn't like that bit, so I didn't actually personally. Ludicrous, and absolutely doomed to fail. Now, so let's talk about the Tories. What is it about Kemi Badenoch that she can't bring herself to actually say we're going to leave the ECHR? She kicked off her leadership by saying, no, we won't lead, which I don't think is conservative for a kick-off. She's now, I can't remember how long she's been in power now, or at the helm, but she's now saying, well, we're going to have a review, a 5-month review. Why do you need a 5-month review? And after 5 months, if they've appointed some lord to do this review, if that lord turns around and says, well, my decision is, or conclusion is, we should stay in the ECHR, that will doom the Tories to guaranteed disaster. They're in a bad state now. It'll be even worse. She needs to grow a pair, doesn't she, and just cut the umbilical cord, leave the ECHR, because that's what Conservatives want.
Yeah, let me attempt, Kevin, to muster a defence for Kemi here, because I agree with you. I think that this is basically a binary question, and I think the jury is in. I mean, if you haven't made your mind up yet about whether we should leave the ECHR or not, I'm not quite sure what's going to be discovered in a 5-month review that would inform you. But in fairness to Kemi, she said today she thinks it's very likely we'll have to leave. And she's actually asked this commission, headed up by Lord Wolfson, a Tory peer and the head of the next...
Glad you remembered his name.
Stores, the next chain stores. He's going to be asked the question, not should we or shouldn't we? Kemi rightly says that's a political question, but how would we do it? So Kemi's in this slightly curious position, although you might say it's a smart one, even if it's a nuanced one, in which she hasn't firmly decided that she wants to leave the ECHR, although she seems to be leaning quite heavily in that direction. But she wants to know exactly how we would do it if we did make that decision. If she pulled the trigger in a hypothetical world in which she's Prime Minister and said, I want to leave, what are the consequences? That's what Wolfson's going to work out. And although, Kevin, I agree with you that all of these preposterous cases that we're seeing under this Article 8 for private and family life, that you can't kick somebody out of the country because their kid has a particular liking for English chicken nuggets, for example, absolutely ridiculous. But simply leaving the ECHR will not be enough to solve that, because we have our own Human Rights Act, which is based entirely on the ECHR. So you're going to have to repeal the Human Rights Act as well. Well, at that point, you know, do you want to say, well, there's going to be no human rights on the statute books that courts can interpret, or do you want to keep some of them and not others? There's another technical problem that the ECHR is written into the Good Friday Agreement, the peace agreement with Northern Ireland. So all of the problems we have with Northern Ireland over Brexit, leaving the ECHR would almost be, you know, no can of worms left unopened at that point. Now, all of these things are probably soluble, but they're not soluble just with the flick of a pen, and they're not soluble by wishful thinking. So Kemi's argument is, let's work out how we do all of this. What changes would there need to be to domestic legislative settings, not just tearing up our contract with the ECHR, and what problems might emerge, such as Northern Ireland, and what's the solution to those? So it's all a bit slow and steady, you know, a bit tortoise rather than hare. I get that. But if you were actually looking to execute this as policy, it's not enough just to say we should leave and to hope that that will be the end to our problems with immigration. I think it's a necessary condition to leave, but it's not a sufficient condition to solve all of the problems.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but she needs to know, I'm sure she does understand, leaving the ECHR isn't the total cure, but it's necessary if we are to solve this crisis. So she needs to get that through her head, because if she decides, due to this review, to stay in, then the Tories, yeah, they really will be finished. So she needs to get her act together quickly, I think. Very quickly, Mark, onto the important question. I didn't realise that you were a Doctor Who fanatic. I gather you've seen every single episode ever. Now, Billie Piper cropped up as allegedly the new Doctor at the end of the last series, or last week, wasn't it? Some say, well, that she won't be the new Doctor, and it's going to be rested now. Why is it that the BBC has, in my view, I used to be a TV critic, so I'm not entirely ignorant on all of this, killed Doctor Who, drowned it in a sea of moronic woke rubbish. It is wokery on steroids. It's gone mad. It's alienated all of its audience. Its traditional fans don't know what's going on. Why has the BBC allowed this to happen? Why don't they just go back to what it used to be, a good, fun sci-fi series?
Yeah, very good question. I would actually say that in terms of the death of Doctor Who, Kevin, there are two murderers at the scene of the crime. One is the BBC, but the last two seasons have been made in conjunction with Disney and the Disney Plus channel. And if you mix together the BBC with Disney, you've probably got the most woke concoction that you could possibly stir up. So they've probably been egging each other on. The problem is that the show lost its heart and decided that its principal aim was to showcase and preach diversity, equality and inclusion. And that was the main drive of the show. And telling exciting adventures in time and space became a secondary consideration, almost overlooked. So the audience was tuning in, hoping they could see the Doctor fighting the Daleks and the Cybermen and the rest of it. And there might even be a moral to the story. There certainly has been in the past. But they're actually being sort of force-fed a very left-of-centre, woke, progressive view of the world. And audiences have therefore crashed. It needs a rest. It badly needs a rest. It's had a very good run. It's been with us since 1963, but even since the show came back, it's been 20 years now, and it's quite rare for a series to last that time. But it's now run out of road. Its only hope is that Billy Piper isn't the next Doctor. They take it off air for a couple of years and bring it back with somebody who wants to run it to tell exciting stories, not to preach left-wing politics.
Absolutely. I mean, the question is has time run out for the Time Lord? Let's hope not, but it does need a rest. You'll have to come on to my evening show. We'll have a long, proper chat about Doctor Who. My audience love it. Good to talk to you, Mark. Pleasure.
Thanks,
Mark
Kevin.
Littleworth, the director of the Popular Conservatism organisation. When we come back, we're going to go back to the burqa ban debate and talk to someone who I believe is in favour of the continuation of that garment. So that next, stay tuned.
There are people, somebody who I have, one of whom sits in that chair many weekends. I would say David Bull would be a superb person that I think could do the job and would be very, very popular in that role. But this is Nigel's choice. The choice of chairman is the leader. But we're going to be seeing soon, I think, the election of the party board. There's 3 ordinary members, and that continuation of the growth to professionalism and growth to democratisation of the party is ongoing. It hasn't finished.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's talk about the burqa. It is the issue of the day. It has been since Sarah Poshin asked that question in the House of Commons, asking the Prime Minister would he consider banning the burqa. 22 countries, as I say, around the world do ban it. Several European countries, quite a few Muslim countries. So it seems like a relevant debate for this country to have. So I'm very pleased to welcome to the show Imam and broadcaster Ajmal Masroor, who's very kindly stepped out of his family's celebrations of the Eid festival. So thank you for that, Ajmal. Can you tell us where you stand on the burqa? I'm assuming that you're not in favour of a ban. What do you say to people like Sarah Poshin, and I'll be honest with you, me, who do feel that we should ban the full face-covering burqa?
Firstly, I want to say Eid Mubarak to any of your viewers who are celebrating Eid today. It's a significant day, and we're all having great fun here. Well, great fun in the sense that we've eaten a lot of food, so I'm resting actually.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
After having spent a whole day in the mosque, but it's a fantastic day. But anyway, coming back to the topic. So Sarah has made her maiden speech, or maybe maiden question, in the Parliament, and her debut is a question on burqa, which is really sad because it is not an issue for us in the UK. I'll tell you why it's not an issue. It's an Afghani national dress. If Afghani people want to wear burqa, I'm nobody to comment about it. I don't wear it. My families don't wear it. 99.99% of British Muslims don't wear it here. So I don't even understand why Sarah thought
is it that 99.9%? Is that an accurate percentage?
Yeah. I will tell you this because I live in London. And I've lived in London coming up to now 53 years, and I travel up and down the country. I rarely see anybody wearing that Afghani national dress. Believe you me, the national dress of Afghanistan is nothing to do with Islam. It's to do with our Afghani culture and tradition. Just like in sub-Saharan countries, man and woman both wear turbans and covering their face. It's a sub-Saharan culture. So for us to even discuss it as an issue for UK, it's just a waste of time in my view. Sarah could have made a huge impact by talking about other issues that impact our day-to-day life. You know, my friend, burqa is not an issue. It doesn't concern us. And at the end of the day, ultimately, ladies have the right to decide what they want to wear. Who am I to say anything? I'm a man. Well, if I say anything, I'll be told off.
Well, what about what it represents? I mean, doesn't it represent a kind of subordination of women? Doesn't it turn them into second-class citizens who must be covered up? Is that right? You say your family don't wear them. Why would you think it's okay for other families to use them? I mean, don't you think? I mean, apart from there are obviously security and identification problems, but that's not really at the root of what I would like to discuss. I would say that culturally here in Britain, 22 countries around the world have banned this thing. Many of them Muslim countries, funnily enough. Obviously France, Austria, Denmark, quite a few European countries. So why do you think it's not a relevant debate here, but it has been in those 22 other countries?
My daughter, when she heard that I'm coming to discuss this with you, she is a 20-year-old veterinary science student at a university. She's trying to become a vet. When she heard that I'm coming to this discussion, she said to me, "Daddy, can you please ask them, firstly, what gives any men the right to tell us what to wear and what not to wear?" That's the first question. And second question, she said, "Why is there a desire on the part of society for women to show more skin?" So my daughter said to me, ask people, why do they want to see more of our skin?
Well, we just want to see the face.
So if we're talking about
it's not like looking at a load of skin, is it? We want to see their face. We just think that's the civilized way that women should dress.
So I'm saying there are people in the world, such as sub-Saharan people, who are not Muslims, who have their own tribal religion, who cover their faces and travel. Are we saying they're less civilized than us? Are we saying?
Well, I think in that respect, yes.
Well, then, I'm sorry, I don't agree with you, because sub-Saharan people will have their own civilization and their own culture, and we'll all
You don't think that's a bit medieval? A bit anachronistic.
I don't think so. I mean,
what making women cover up their entire faces, walk around with those sinister big black things hanging over them. You don't think that's demeaning to women?
But this is my point.
Do you think that's demeaning to women, Ajmal?
You know what you've just said. And
well, yeah, answer the question. Do you think that is demeaning to women?
I'm asking you a question. You just said they're
all right. You ask me one. I'll answer your question as long as you promise to answer mine. Okay, what's your question to me?
So you know, if it's Eid day, I don't want to fight with you. I'm having a great time.
No. I've just.
So let's get back to the conversation, which is that if we say they're being forced to wear it, nobody should be forced to wear anything. That's the first thing. I don't support enforced wearing of any clothes by anybody in any shape, size, or form. Like in France. Would you know they forced women to take their headscarf off? Forget about the face covering. Like in France, Muslim women can't go to universities to study with a headscarf. So France is a terrible example of emancipation of women or liberation. It's a terribly secular, extremist country. But you're absolutely right. If a woman is demeaned, if a woman is forced to do anything, I will stand for the right of a woman to be free and not to be oppressed by men or women, or by Sarah, or like anybody to suggest that they can't choose a dress of their own. Whatever they want to wear, they're welcome to wear. I welcome it.
Apart from, look, I agree with you. I mean, liberty, freedom of choice, whatever you want to wear. But the full face cover, the full burqa, I think is demeaning to women. I think it presents many security problems, identification problems. And it comes down to this, Ajmal. Nations have to ask themselves, do we like this? Is this commensurate with our culture? And it's not, is it? It's a throwback from medieval times. And as I understand it, the reason for it is ludicrous. That is that should a man see the face of a woman, he will be consumed by uncontrollable lust. What a load of claptrap.
Isn't that your interpretation rather than...
Don't you think that is claptrap?
Well, no, hang on. That's what you're interpreting their particular dress code to mean. I don't know that. I would say let women decide ultimately. Why are we having a discussion about this? If a woman wants to cover her face, it's her choice. Just like if a woman doesn't want to cover her face, if a woman doesn't want to wear anything on her head, it's her choice. Ultimately, we can't have it both ways. If we're giving ourselves the right to choose, a woman has the right to choose to wear or not to wear. We should not be discussing that. Just like we don't discuss about women's dress, why should we be discussing about Muslim women's dress if they want that?
All right,
by the way, just to clarify, Muslim women are not obliged to cover their faces. It's not in the Quran. It's not the sayings of the Prophet. Usually when they cover their faces, it's a cultural practice. And if they want to practice their culture, who am I to stop them from practicing their culture? It's, as far as I'm concerned, all cultures have equal rights. Let them celebrate. It's a brilliant idea.
It's okay. What about last question, Ajmal? And thank you for joining us. What about the security aspect? You know, you can't have people walking into banks or whatever completely covered up. So how about that?
Well, if the security aspect requires them to remove their face, and if they're wearing it for their own traditional reasons, let them discuss that with the security people. For example, if I walked into a bank wearing a mask because of COVID, and the security staff says to me, "Sir, can I see your face?" I'll happily take it off. How can I fight and argue about it? It's a common sense approach. It doesn't need a parliamentary debate. Sarah is wasting her time, parliamentary time, and actually it's pretty pathetic to bring it up as her first question. It's really sad that Sarah chose that. Unfortunately, as a result of which, it's a, the floodgate has opened. The chairman of the party has resigned. Other funders have left. And I believe reform would see an internal implosion because they themselves are in contradiction. I'm not in contradiction. Muslims are very happy in our skin, our culture, and our British identity. I don't see a reason why we should be even bothered by it.
So for the avoidance of doubt, Ajmal, final question, that you think that the 22 countries, including quite a few Muslim countries on all the continents that have banned the burqa, are wrong?
Can I ask you a question again?
For the avoidance of doubt, you think that the 22 countries around the world on all the continents that have banned the burqa, including many Muslim countries, quite a few European countries, you think they're all wrong?
If those Muslim countries are democratic, then I would say they're right. But if they're not democratic, they're wrong. Believe it or not, most Muslim countries are not.
France, Austria, and Denmark, for example, are democratic countries. They've banned
France
it.
is.
Are they right or wrong?
France is an extremist country.
France is an extremist country.
Yes, France is a secular extremist country. It doesn't allow a Muslim woman to wear shoes. It doesn't allow a Muslim woman to come to a public space wearing a headscarf. Forget about face covering. It doesn't allow Muslims to have their own mosques in a free way. Okay. 17 to 18 mosques have been recently closed. So France is a bad example. Many Muslim countries I can cite in front of you that we do business with, we think they're our friends, but they're not democratic. They're run by dictators and despots. We supply them arms and weapons to continue our bidding.
Yeah, but it's not about democracy. It's not about democracy. Ashmal, it's not about. It's about countries deciding to ban it. It's not about democracy. But listen,
by dictators, by despots deciding what to do, including you.
Well, yeah, they're not despotic in Denmark. They're not despotic in Austria, and so on and so forth. I think there are holes in your argument. You think there are holes in mine. Let's just.
I think we agree, but we agree on one thing, and that is a woman should have the right to decide what she wants to wear.
Well, to an extent. To an extent, no, I don't think they should have the right to cover. I don't think they should have the right to cover themselves right up. Just like you can't have the right to wear a Nazi.
You go and tell your wife. You go and tell your wife. You're going to tell your wife that and see what she says.
Yeah, well, we're discussing this in the office, and everybody.
And I'm pretty certain she will say it.
Everybody thought it was a very good idea that I should wear a burqa because nobody wants to look at my ugly face. But there you are. Ajmal, thanks for joining us. Go back and enjoy the rest of Eid. Good to talk to Ajmal Masroor there, Imam and broadcaster. Well, again, you know, you heard that debate, nice guy and all that. I just don't think his argument holds particular water. You let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, we're going to talk, by the way, taking your calls in about 10 minutes or so. 03444991000. Should we ban the burqa? That's the big issue of the day. But you might want to call in about what we're going to discuss now, and that is what I would describe as the shambles of our Labour government's approach to defence. They're making a lot of noise. Oh, we're going to defend you, war footing and all this nonsense. So earlier this week it was the Defence Spending Review, in which basically Keir Starmer and John Healey, the Defence Secretary, basically said, oh, with so many weapons, we're going to buy all these, build all these new nuclear subs, we're going to put nuclear missiles on planes, and 2.3% spending on, of our GDP spending on defence will go up in 2 years to 2027 to 2.5%. Wow. And then John Healey said, 3% though, maybe 3%. And then when quizzed on that, well, that's just an ambition. In other words, it will never happen. Now we learn that NATO is saying, well, never mind 2.3%. 2.5% isn't good enough either. And frankly, nor is 3%, even if it's only an ambition. It's 3.5% we're going to require. Starmer has made noises, yeah, OK, 3.5%. Well, if we go to 3.5%, and there are lots of reasons perhaps that we should, these are turbulent times, there's only one way this government can pay for that. Massive tax rises. Let's speak to former Conservative MP, military expert, of course, author of Total War, about new forms of warfare in the 21st century, Dr. Bob Seeley. Welcome to the show, Bob.
Hi, nice to be with you, Kevin, and hello to your listeners.
Well, what do you make of... I mean, Labour are all over the place here. It's just performative. I haven't actually heard anything concrete from them, except for the 2.3% or so of GDP we currently spend on defence will rise to 2.5% by 2027. Hardly spectacular. And then John Healey going around saying, well, maybe, 3%, we've got a kind of ambition. And now Starmer saying, well, yeah, OK, if NATO say 3.5%, fine. Except no commitment, no commitment. These are just noises. This is just political nonsense, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right to call it a shambles. I think there's an awful lot of noise. I'm very dubious about the action. When he says we're moving to a war footing, this is simply delusional. And actually, it's incredibly insulting and dishonest as well. We're not at war footing, and we're not going to be for some time. And that's not actually the point. You don't want to be on a war footing. And I think when the Prime Minister says that, he shows his remarkable ignorance about defence matters. What you need to be is deterring your enemies from trying their luck and trying to be militarily adventurous, whether it's allies in the Pacific or whether it's much nearer home with NATO countries in the Baltic, for example, or indeed the Baltic Sea. So we need to be deterring enemies and potential enemies. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to be a war footing, but it means we have to take these things seriously and have a credible deterrence. And frankly, we don't really at the moment.
You see, this is typical of this government, typical of Keir Starmer, just assailing the nation with a blizzard of announcements, never actually doing anything. Now, in all sorts of areas of life, OK, that's typical politics. But when you're talking about the defence of the realm, using this kind of announcement technique, it's not good enough. I mean, he's talking about keeping the nation safe. They haven't said anything concrete that would add up to keeping this nation safe. They just made lots and lots of, oh, we're going to build some submarines, oh, we're going to put some missiles on aeroplanes, be afraid, be very afraid, and we're going to save you, but nothing concrete. And it's worrying, given the difficult and turbulent times that we live in now.
Yeah, again, Kevin, you're right. Labour's acting as if announcements are action, as if saying you're going to build a submarine is actually having that submarine. And it's really not. I don't believe for 1 second all 12 of these subs will be built, for example. I think we'll be lucky to get to 7 or 8. And I suspect we may get as few as 5. I have to say the MOD for some years now has basically said, oh, we're going to have these weapons at some point in the future, as if that is good enough in itself. It isn't, because we actually need the kit and it needs to be working and it needs to be operational. And the one thing actually that the Ukraine war has shown us is that the way that we fund defence at the moment is simply unaffordable. I'll give you a very brief example. I was with the Ukrainian unit writing my book at the end of last year. They look after 15 kilometres of a 600-kilometre front line. They go through 150 suicide drones a day. Those drones cost about $1,500, $2,500 max. Western equivalent Switchblade, which wouldn't really work in Ukraine, costs 60 grand, $60,000. So even protecting for 1 month a small stretch of front line would cost £250 million. It's the Western defence model is unaffordable, but we have to find a way of defending ourselves. Part of that is with expensive kit, but some of it's got to be learning from Ukraine. And my worry is we're not going to learn, and we're going to spend the money not very well. We're already giving 9 billion of the defence uplift to Mauritius to take the Chagos Islands, where the Diego Garcia military base is, when we don't need to do that. It's like we've got money to burn, we've got 9 million to give away to Mauritius, but at the same time, we don't have money for pensioners for the winter fuel allowance. And at the same time, apparently, we're on a war footing, which is about as delusional as it gets.
Absolutely. And now that the Russians are sort of blaming us for this brilliant Operation Spiderweb, is that what they called it, when the Ukrainians knocked out a third of the Russian Air Force with drones, and the Russian ambassador said yesterday, well, UK was at the heart of that. They were in on this operation, so they're not feeling very friendly towards Britain right now. So given that if they took any action, what Keir Starmer's government is basically saying to them is, would you mind hanging on for a few years? Oh, well, at least 2, because we're not going to get to 2.5% there, but if we have to get to 3.5%, Vladimir, is it all right if you don't take any action against us for about 4 years at least? It's ludicrous, isn't it?
We have a delusion that our enemies are going to allow us to fight to our strengths and not our weaknesses. We were lucky with an enemy like Saddam Hussein that he fought to our strengths, and he fought a conventional war, and he lost badly. But since then, our enemies have sussed out that they need to fight to our weaknesses and not our strengths, whether that's the Taliban in Afghanistan, whether it's the militias in Iraq. The Russians are not going to sit around saying, well, look, we'll give the Brits time to rearm. They're going to say, let's crack on and do things now. I mean, they're threatening. The Baltic Sea is I don't know if you can describe a sea as a tinderbox. I don't think it's the greatest metaphor, maybe. Yeah. But if I can say that, the Baltic Sea right now is a tinderbox, because the Russians are making, billions every year, tens of billions every year from illegal oil sales. The Estonians are trying to cut that right down, and the Russians have got their navy out. They've got their air force overflying into Estonian airspace, threatening the Estonians. The Russians pretty much every week are threatening to cut some of the 24 internet and pipelines there. I mean, we could have a real crisis with the Russians between Russia and NATO and the Baltic this summer, and just saying this delusional, non-existent war footing is just going to make us look...
It's dangerous, Bob. It's very dangerous, Bob. But look, one last quick question to you. Even if the Labour government go anywhere near spending what they're saying they're going to spend, I mean, that presumably military spending or defence spending will at least rise marginally. There's only one way to pay for that, isn't there? More taxes.
No. Okay, firstly, I would say, Kevin, that actually, when it comes to defence, we have to treat it as not optional. Look, go back to the 1930s. We were spending roughly about the same amount as we were now, 2.5% on defence. By 1944, we were spending 50% of our GDP on defence because of World War II. If your defence spending goes too low, you simply pay for it in the next decade or the decade afterwards.
Tax rises are coming, though, aren't they, Bob?
No, not necessarily. If we are actually serious about cracking down on illegal immigration and legal immigration, if we are serious about getting people back into work and doing some really tough things with DWP, we could cut government spending by billions very easily, but it takes determination to do it.
Yeah, it does. It also takes a talented government, and I think we're not doing too well on that score. Bob, great to talk to you. Bob Seeley, their former Tory MP and military expert, author of Total War, about new forms of warfare in the 21st century. Next up, your calls, 0344 499 1000. Let's talk. It's good to talk on Talk.
certainly saying to the judges, we'd rather prefer it if you eased off on certain parts of the ECHR without leaving the convention won't work at all, because that's what the Labour Party is trying to do. The judges will say, and actually quite rightly say, our job is to apply the law of the land and not to act on a nod and a wink from government.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Let's go straight to the phones. Let's talk to Lee in Salisbury. Hi, Lee.
Oh, hi, Kev. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. So you want to talk about the burqa. What would you like to say?
Well, it's just a brief one, really. Just I was listening to the conversation you was having with the previous caller, or the guy that you got in. It always astounds me when I hear these guys talking about people having being able to make a decision on what they wear. But it just makes me always think to myself, well, why is it you never respect the country that you're in? For instance, when I went to Dubai with my previous girlfriend 10 years ago, there was no way she would be allowed to walk
around in a bikini or a miniskirt, right? Yeah.
A miniskirt or a bikini or a low-cut top, because of respect for the country. I wouldn't let her do that myself.
Yeah.
I would have said, no, out of respect for the country we're in, you can't do that. But the respect coming back for our country never seems to be a two-way thing. It seems to be, well, we can do what we want.
Yeah.
So for culture-wise, if we was to do what we want to do with our culture in their country, we would be chastised immediately for it. When it comes back to people from foreign countries and their cultures coming into our country, we seem to get called racist, and that's what upsets me. So I just wanted to call in.
No. But listen, Lee, I'm with you. And Ajmal, very nice guy and all that. But when they say women should be able to decide what she wears herself, well, there are a number of issues with that. First of all, do all these women actually want to be covered up like that? And we have to ask ourselves. We have to ask ourselves as a country. I've got no problem with other cultures living here as long as they don't want to take our country over. But we have to ask ourselves as a nation, like France has, like Denmark has, like Austria has, like Tunisia has, a Muslim country, all the Stan countries in the east to the south of Russia, they're all Muslim countries. They've all banned it. So why have they banned it? It's as simple as this, Lee. They don't like it. They think it demeans women, and they think that it's a medieval throwback that in a modern 21st country has no place. So we have to decide as a nation, do we like the burqa? It's as simple as that.
Oh, I totally agree, and I just think that we don't get respected for our culture by the cultures from over in East Asia and Asian countries. Yeah. So, why is it that we have to respect that they're allowed to just come into our country and do exactly the same?
Absolutely. And by the way, when they say, you can't have laws about what people wear, that's another argument. Well, you can. We've got laws. First of all, there's a law against not wearing anything. There's a law against wearing, say, a T-shirt with a Nazi swastika on it. There are all sorts of laws about apparel. So that's a nonsense argument as well. I think, at the very least, Lee, we need an urgent national debate on this. Lee, thank you very much. Excellent call. Let's go to Steve in Leeds, who also wants to talk about the burqa. What would you like to say, Steve?
Evening, Kevin. Yeah, just a couple of quick points. The first one is, as we move into the future, more and more we rely on cameras, facial recognition. So anybody covering the face, it's almost impossible to track them if they've committed a crime.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah, it's a very important point, all of that, yeah.
Yeah. Number two, right? We've already had a case in this country several years ago when suspected terrorists left the country dressed in burqas. I remember it being in the news.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And the final point is this. This relates back to the Muslim grooming gangs, right? They see white girls half naked, as they see it, as not worth respect, and therefore they can abuse them. And it goes back to the mentality of these men. If a woman doesn't show a demure attitude by covering her whole body, she's effectively...
Yeah, well, I see, that's exactly it, Steve. I don't like that. I think it's medieval. I think it's medieval, and we have to think about whether or not we want to sanction it as a nation. It's certainly worth an urgent debate. I think Sarah Potion was exactly right. Steve, thank you very much. Excellent call. Right, we're going to go to the news now. When we come back after the news, we're going to talk to Philip Kilsley, Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, about all the big stories of the day. That next. Stay tuned.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, bombshell breaking news from across the Atlantic in America. Donald Trump has sold his Tesla because he doesn't actually want to get back together with Elon Musk. We've been hearing there was going to be this rapprochement phone call after their furious spat yesterday, their explosive row on social media. We heard today that there was going to be a phone call. They were going to try and kiss and make up. But apparently no, because I always said that if there was a move for this phone call to happen, it would have been from Elon Musk's side of the fence, because I think Elon Musk woke up this morning and thought, oh my God, what have I done? You can't go round calling the President of the United States a paedophile, which is basically what he did, an outrageous false allegation, by the way. He basically said that Donald Trump was on Jeffrey Epstein's VIP list of men he supplied with underage girls. Now, that's an outrageous slur on the president. You can't do that, particularly if you're trying to run three big businesses in the country, America, that Donald Trump runs. I think he woke up this morning, oh my God, and now the share price of Tesla is plummeting already. Anyway, so Donald has let it be known he's not taking Elon Musk's phone call, so that feud is raging, no rapprochement, and he's selling his Tesla. So I wonder how much you reckon, like 0344 499 1000, how much will Donald Trump get for his Tesla? About $2. Nobody wants an electric car anymore, do they? But seriously, that will have a lot of resale value. This is Donald Trump's Tesla. But there you go. Big news from across the pond. Now, coming up in this hour, in a little while, about 20 minutes or so, I'm going to be talking to an old friend of mine, Matt Kelly. He's the editor of, well, it used to be the New European. Matt, good friend of mine, but he's a Romaniac, Ramona, you know, terrified about populism and big fan of globalism. So he's a paper called The New European, which is basically beating the Remainer drum. Well, they've kind of given up on that after, what is it, well, however long, since 2016. They've given up on that and they've changed the name to the New World because he's taking the message to the entire planet. So I'll talk to Matt about why they've changed direction. And also, Rod McPhee, TV editor of The Sun, will be joining me towards the end of the show, around about 6:30, because we need to talk about Doctor Who. I touched on it with Mark Littlewood earlier, Doctor Who superfan, a Whovian extraordinaire. But Rod McPhee is going to join me. We'll discuss whether or not the Time Lord has run out of time. Also, The Sun have got a big feature coming up on the BBC, whether or not the licence fee is justified anymore. The BBC versus streaming. It is a big, big issue. I think that the BBC licence fee, TV licence fee, is anachronistic. It's a place, as I used to say on the Flintstones, it's a place right out of history. It's got to go. It's ridiculous. 170 quid a year so they can tell us lies about Gaza. No thanks. We'll talk to Rob McPhee later, TV editor of The Sun. Good guy. And then we'll be taking your calls again, 0344 499 1000. And then at the end of the show, I'll be handing over to Pete Barnes, who's got a very onerous job. He's going to host my show. You better look after it. So Pete Barnes will be in about 7 o'clock to tell you what he's got lined up for you for your entertainment on my show, The Political Asylum. So all that still to come. But before we get to the rest of it, let's go back to the main issues of the day. And let's talk to Senior Fellow at the New Culture Forum, Philip Kilsley. Welcome, Philip.
Hi, Kev. It's great to see you again.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Sorry, we messed you around a bit, didn't we? We're going to put you in all sorts of time slots. You were going to start the show for us at 4 o'clock, but I'm afraid even you have to take second place to Sarah Potion because Sarah suddenly said that she was keen to come on. So we've had to demote you a bit, but it's top of the hour. This is important. Let's talk first, shall we? Well, let's talk about the burqa. We'll talk about the Reform UK problems in a little while with the departure of Zia Youssef. But Sarah Potion kind of detonated a grenade, didn't she, the other day in the House of Commons? You'd have thought when she stood up and said, can I ask the Prime Minister if he would follow suit, follow several European countries. In fact, as I keep saying, there are 22 countries around the world that have banned the burqa, many of them Muslim. When she said, would he consider banning the burqa, you'd think she said, would the Prime Minister consider murdering every baby in the country? It was like there was this, oh God, what has she said? Well, the House fell into a kind of hushed, stunned silence. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, was terrified by the question. He said, oh, I'm not going to follow her down that line. Well, you know, why? Why? I think Sarah Poshin is exactly right. She's against the burqa. She wants to ban it. I agree with that. But whether or not you agree with that, it's important, it's urgent, I think, for this country to have a debate about this. We need to talk about the burqa, don't we?
Yeah, and she's only kind of expressing the wishes of her constituents as well. As she said, you know, in Runcorn, it's a major issue, and it's a major issue across the country because it brings in so many points that we desperately need to talk about. We've got a huge problem with misogyny in this country. We didn't used to have, but we've got a massive problem with misogyny now. And if there are lots of people forced to cover themselves completely for religious reasons, then that is a massive problem. We don't have equality. If that's the case, we absolutely don't have equality. And of course, there are security issues as well. You know, if people are walking around, we even have some instances where people are asking to have their passport photos taken while wearing burqas, you know. And if that happens, then we're in a crazy situation. No, it's true. It's true. So if that kind of thing happens, then we're in a crazy situation. Also, teachers, you know, in classrooms teaching little children, and children can't see their faces. Part of communication, part of normal human communication, me and you talking now, we need to see each other's faces. It's what we do. We read all different kinds of signs. And we live in a country that has equality, okay? Equality before the law, or we're supposed to have equality before the law, and that's men and women. And if we have women tied away in all sorts of clothing because men aren't allowed to see them, then there is something drastically wrong there. These are conversations that we need to have because they are we have fundamentally changed the key tenets of our society. We have a democracy. And if we are not allowed to challenge, this is actually the root of it, is about challenging Islam, isn't it? And it's not so much the question itself, it's, as you quite rightly said, the response. This was a challenge to Islam, the supremacy of Islam in a way, the fact that we cannot critique it in any way, shape or form. And it was the response to that that was absolutely incredible to me. Everyone was just terrified, especially the Prime Minister. Now, we cannot be in a situation where the Prime Minister is terrified of a minority religion.
Absolutely. And I had inspired by Sarah's question, I had a debate on my show on Wednesday night, and where two ladies came on. Neither of them were Muslims, as a matter of fact, but one lady was arguing, that the burqa should be allowed and it was none of our business what people wore and all of that. And she's then said something in the middle of it. I said, well, what about Tunisia? What about all these Muslim countries that have banned it? You know, never mind the European countries and all most of the Stan countries, those sort of southern Asia, the south of Russia, southern Asian countries, you know, Uzbekistan and all that. Most of them have banned it. So Muslim countries have done it. France, Austria, Denmark have banned it. Most of China has banned it. You know, it's a sort of panoramic ban around the world by various cultures. But she said, she said, oh, well, never mind about them. Well, yeah, I do mind about them. I want to know, you know, why don't we follow suit? If these civilized countries have made that decision, we should think about it. And she said, well, it's not about whether or not we like the burqa. And it suddenly struck me like a bolt of lightning. Do you know, that is exactly what it is. It is a question of whether we, Britain, as a country in the 21st century, like the burqa. And my answer to that is no, I don't like it. I don't like the subjugation of women. I think it demeans them. I think it turns them into second-class citizens. I think that the religious reasons for the burqa, for the cover-up, are ludicrous and medieval. The idea being that should a man see a lady's face, the skin on her face, he will be consumed by uncontrollable lust. There is no place, in my view, for that kind of outmoded, anachronistic claptrap in 21st century Britain. So those would be my reasons to think about banning it.
Yeah, because if we do go down that route and we say that, you know, men are just completely incapable of controlling themselves and they have all of these terrible issues, we are actually going back in time. We're going back to a medieval kind of society. Okay, and if religion and particularly this religion, which is totally intolerant in its extreme form, is at front and center of policy, of society, of culture, of politics, of everything, then we really are in trouble. Now, I go back to this point of, you know, that they always say, oh, well, what about the women who want to wear it? In a way, that isn't the issue. The issue is the women who don't want to wear it and who are not allowed to say anything. You know, it isn't down to them. They're not allowed to make the decision. Their communities, their community leaders, men are making the decisions for them, and they cannot speak. They do not have a voice. So it is up to civil society. It's actually up to secular society, because we live in a secular society with a Christian heritage. Okay, it's up to us to speak out for them.
Absolutely. So all she's calling for, I mean, she personally wants to ban it. I agree with her. But all she's calling for is a debate. And when we have a house full of 650 MPs who think the very topic is terrifying, oh, don't go there. I mean, that's just ludicrous. And the Prime Minister said, I'm not going to follow her down that line. It was a question by a representative of the people to the Prime Minister. Would he consider banning the burqa? His answer was, I'm not going to follow her down that line. That's a disgrace, if you ask me. It is an important debate and we need to have it. Let's move on, if we can. Let's talk about the ECHR, the European Convention on Human Rights. The Labour solution, I mean, we're talking about the migrant crisis, which of course gets worse by the day. Lest we forget, last Saturday 1,195 foreigners crossed the channel illegally and broke into our country. This was the fourth highest number of all time, certainly the highest this year, but also the highest since 2022. So an extraordinary invasion in just one day. So we've got a problem here. So it has ignited once again the debate about whether or not we should leave the European Convention on Human Rights, because frankly we can't do much about our sovereign borders. We can't do much about whether or not we can deport, I don't know, jailed paedophiles, criminals, foreign people who come here and break our laws. We should be able to make our decisions ourselves, but of course the ECHR, the European Court on Human Rights, supersedes us. It can tell us who we can and cannot deport. So if we don't leave the ECHR, we cannot solve the migrant crisis. So both the main parties have got to address it. So what are their solutions? The Labour Party's solution is just ludicrous. It is this: we're going to stay in the ECHR, but this Article 8 thing, you know, the right to a family life that allows paedophiles to stay here, well, we're going to ignore that bit because we don't like that bit. Well, that's ridiculous. You either adhere to the ECHR or you don't. You cannot pick and choose the bits you like and the bits you don't like. That's ludicrous. Meanwhile, Kemi Badenoch, you know, is on, as they say in reality TV, a journey. When she became Leader of the House, Leader of the Tories, she said, oh, no, I don't want to leave the ECHR. It's too complicated. It's too simple. Now she says, I think we may have to leave, but she's commissioned a 5-month review. It's a binary question, and it's quite clear. Kemi, if you want to solve the migrant crisis, leave the ECHR. If you want it to remain as the shambles, the escalating shambles it is now, stay in the ECHR. And by the way, when you do that, kiss goodbye to the Conservative Party. What is her problem? Why can't she make this decision, Philip?
Well, I think at the moment she's just performing, isn't she? She's being outflanked in every way, outperformed in every way by Robert Jenrick, who is pretty much, let's be honest, who everybody, we all want Robert Jenrick to be the leader of the Conservative Party. She can't make the decision because she actually doesn't believe in it. If you look at her pedigree, if you look at her record, it's appalling on this stuff. If we don't get rid of the ECHR, we cannot have integrity of our law. We cannot go against the lawfare, which is absolutely destroying us at the moment. And she really is part of this Westminster machine. She's part of the Westminster Village. She doesn't really care. Actually, Kev, I don't think. What she's actually doing at the moment is being seen to do something, being seen to do the right thing. Because if she really did care about this, she'd have been campaigning very strongly months and months and months ago. She would, as soon as she got into the leadership, as soon as she got into power, this would be 9 o'clock Monday morning, top of the list. Let's get rid of this terrible legislation, which is crippling us as a country, which is allowing our borders to be completely porous, and we cannot deport people. And it's not just about Article 8. You can't have the whole thing and say we're going to take that out.
Just pick and choose the bits you like and the bits you don't. It's ridiculous. You just can't do that. That just absolutely shows the Labour Party up for the bad actors they are. And of course we know that we can't trust the Labour Party, but we also know, Kev, that we can't trust the Conservative Party. We've had 15 years of broken promises, and if she says she's going to leave the HR with some kind of yes minister Sir Humphrey-esque great big inquiry that's going to happen in 3 years' time or 3 months' time or whatever it is, around about the time of the party conference, then we know it's going to be, oh, well, yes, we might do this and we might do that. Nothing's ever going to happen. And if they ever did get in power again, it would be the same. She's the captain of the Titanic and she's sinking the Tory ship. She really is. I've got a last question for you, Philip. What exactly do we get out of being a member of the European Convention of Human Rights? What do we get out of it? Anything at all?
We get a load of headaches. We get a lot of foreign criminals. We get the undermining of our country. We get our women and children who are now in danger from people coming from barbaric cultures who essentially just want to rape them. We get all of those things. It's not good, really. The ECHR is the biggest booby prize in history, and we need to get rid of it ASAP pronto.
Tell you what, Philip, whatever time you come on, you're a star. Thank you so much. Good to talk to you. Philip Kilsey there, Senior Fellow from the New Culture Forum. Let me know what you think about what she was saying. The ECHR, as I say, we're going to take some calls fairly soon. 0344499 1000. If any of you... Philip came up with a lot of negative reasons we should leave the ECHR. But what do you think we actually get out of being a member of the European Convention of Human Rights, apart from being bossed around by the European Court of Human Rights? Are there any positives? Are there any positives at all? I don't think there are. So what is it with these politicians, Keir Starmer, Kemi Bain? Oh, I don't know if we can leave the ECHR. Why? Why not? 0344499 1000. When we come back, I'm going to be talking to a guy. I tell you what, he'll want to stay in the ECHR. I'll guarantee you. Matt Kelly, the editor-in-chief of what used to be the New European, but is now the New World. We'll talk about why he's changed the title of his Ramona publication. That next.
I think he's shattered physically, he's exhausted, and I think that this was actually not about the burqa ban question. That is not why Zia Yusuf has left the party for the time being, or left his role in the party. I think that was a catalyst, because I think he took a whole load of grief on social media and on any number of other channels over. I think he was a little blindsided by it. That was a communications failure. And I think it's been really, really rough for him.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. My next guest, frankly, I preferred him when he was hosting Stars in Your Eyes, but he went on to become a journalist. I had the displeasure of working with him for a while. He's a great journalist. He used to be the features editor of The Mirror, old friend of mine. We don't exactly see eye to eye politically, but Matt went on to create and edit a sort of Remainer paper called The New European, which passionately put the case for not leaving the EU. It started as what they called a pop-up paper, but it carried on and on and on, and years on it was still going and still making the same case. Now, the reason I got Matt on now is that they've changed the name. It's called The New European, but he's changed the name to The New World. So let's get Matt on now. Welcome to the show, Mr. Kelly. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Kevin. How are you, mate?
I'm all right. Now, you've changed the name of The New European, haven't you, to The New World?
Right.
Because banging a Brexit drum, going, oh, I've got to get back into Europe, back into Europe. I mean, it hasn't worked. So you've got to kind of move on, haven't you? You failed in your attempts to get Britain back into the EU.
Well, it won't surprise you to hear that I frame it slightly differently than that. I actually think the argument has long been won about the calamity that Brexit was and has been and continues to be. It's just that Brexit seems now, when you look back at it, it seems like patient zero of what was a global infection, and that kind of nationalism and populism has spread around the world, for me, at quite an alarming rate. And the reality is that our newspaper had changed out of all recognition since we launched it 9 years ago. It seemed unavoidable to talk about these enormous stories that were happening around the world, in America and China and Russia, and also in certain topics like science and technology and disinformation. And so really the newspaper had become the new world long before we changed the name. I had a chat with one of our investors, and he said, look, when you read through the newspaper, you got all these amazing writers, you got all these amazing pieces about all the topics under the sun. He said, you're not the new European, you're the new world. And when he said that, a little light bulb went off in my head, and I thought, that's great. That's a perfect fit, and it gives us chapter 2 of this story, which actually, Kev, as you know, in putting aside the politics, in terms of a publishing media story, it's quite an extraordinary thing for a new newspaper to make its headway like this and to become profitable and successful.
No, absolutely. And, journalistically, it's an excellent enterprise. You found your audience and, congratulations for that. I also note it's kind of turned more into a sort of magazine-y kind of format. But you've written a piece here, why the new European is becoming the new world. And it's full of preaching against the horrors of populism and nationalism. What's wrong? Populism, the definition of populism is policies that are popular with the people. What is it that you lot hate about that so much?
Well, when you say you lot, I'm not sure. I think
you and Alistair Campbell and all the people.
I think this is part of the problem. It's like Populism is quite often throughout history, one can look at the rise of populism, and it always ends the same way, very badly, because populists appeal to, I was tuning into your conversation about the ECHR, which we could discuss if you like, and you present it as a very simple, what's it ever done for anybody? I can't think of anything.
Well, what has it done?
Let's bin it off. Well, I mean, it's done a lot of things. It underpins a lot of the rights that we take for granted. Like,
so if we left the ECHR, we'd lose all those rights?
Well, we'd have to. Well,
we wouldn't, Matt.
No, we wouldn't. Kevin, let me finish the sentence. This is a very important consideration. No, we might not lose all those rights, but we would have to recreate them all ourselves, and it would be incredibly exhausting. And one might ask, why would you want to do that when it was Britain in the first place who set up the ECHR after World War II to embed these senses of fair trials, freedom of speech, protection from torture? You know, it's one of the
none of which would wither and die if we left the ECHR. Well, but look, Matt, let's not talk too much about the
Well, you don't want to talk about details, because this is where populism falls down.
See, populism.
When you get into the details.
Look, let me tell you about this new world, right? Okay, journalistically, I enjoy reading it. You wrote a great piece, very well written, unusual for you, but very well written.
Kevin, I always enjoyed the pieces you wrote for us as well.
Yes, that's right. I have been in the New European. Happy to do so again. You know, I'll take anybody's money. You know me. It strikes me. Don't take this too personally, but this publication is a bunch of snobs who think that the masses, the populists, need to. People like you and Alistair Campbell and Matthew Danko need to tame the base instincts of the people. You know, right. it's all about like oh my God, we mustn't give way to what the people want because we know better. Don't you think this is a bit snobbish? This.
I think that's an unfair characterisation of the people. I don't care what you think about me, but I think when you talk about the base kind of instincts of the people, it's almost like you're trying to you describe them almost like a mob, you know. But I don't think people are. I think they're much more considered than you might give them credit for, and I think people. You've only got to look at the polling.
So, what do you think about their decision that they wanted to leave Europe?
Kevin, let's talk about that, because if you look at the polling now, it's absolutely crystal clear that the majority of people in the UK think Brexit was a mistake.
Yeah, I could commission a poll tomorrow that will give you a completely opposite result. You know about polling. You just asked the right question. On balance, in order to make the country a lot better, do you think we should rejoin Europe? You know, I mean...
No, they don't ask that. What they asked, and they've been asking it consistently for 9 years now, is... And YouGov, this is very authoritative, it's owned by a guy... from the Conservative
I know,
Party.
Yeah,
and they've asked consistently, do you think Brexit was a mistake? And consistently, the numbers of people who think it was absolutely a mistake has risen and risen and risen. So the tide is with me, I'm afraid, on that one, my friend.
Well, yeah, except for Keir Starmer, your hero, isn't going to...
He's not my hero at all.
He's not going to rejoin, is he? He's not going to...
Kevin, we're deeply critical of Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, I think, so far has lacked the audacity to give the British people a sense of where Britain could go one day, and an ambitious, optimistic sense of what Britain's all about. And I think that's what the New World is trying to do, is to say you don't have to be narrow-minded and fall into this trap of all this corrosive nationalism and all of this. There is a better way.
So were the people? I mean, you said, what about nationalism? Why don't you like nationalism?
Well, I just think that we live in an interdependent society. Personally, I feel that we are much better if we do have much closer integration with our near neighbours in Europe. I really believe that, both in trade and travel, letting our children go and experience Europe like we do. It cuts out all the red tape and bureaucracy for small businesses who are drowning in it. You know, so I think the upsides of being much international are much greater than saying no. There's only so much to go around, and we're gonna protect ourselves and push everyone out. That's a nonsense. We can make it work. We're one of the greatest countries on the planet.
Yeah, I'll just say, Matt, as you know, we're old mates, and this is a brilliant publication, and what you've achieved is cheers, by the way.
Thank you. Well, it's been a long week, and I don't know how many are listening. Well, I'll pour myself a pint.
Yeah, well, good for you, but I just think it's a bit sort of smug. This is just a lot of posh, public school Oxford people sort of telling who think that the people who voted for Brexit, the people who want nationalism and not globalism, are somehow stupid, and
That's
therefore.
Not true.
Well, what do you think about the people who voted Brexit?
I mean, let me say, without wanting to sound too self-aggrandising, as the founder and as the editor-in-chief, you know me. I am an ordinary Scouser who came down to London and did all right in newspapers, and I've created this newspaper, and it's got my DNA in it, and it's not posh, it's not elitist, it's just interesting and full of great ideas. And I'll give you all your wonderful listeners. And I love Talk, by the way. I think it's a fantastic radio station, very entertaining. I give them all a challenge. Go out and get a copy, right? And if you don't like it, then get in touch with me and I'll arrange for a refund.
Yeah, and I know that you don't have any advertising, but that was a good bit of advertising there, Matt. No, look, good luck with it, mate. And we need to get together soon. And you're right. You are ordinary, way too ordinary. Let's talk again soon. That is my mate, Matt Kelly, the editor-in-chief of the now newly named The New World. As you can see, we're friends, but we don't agree. Let me know what you think about what he was saying. Is that globalism is good, nationalism is bad, and I can never understand why Matt and all his posh mates who went to Oxford University and all this kind of thing think that populism is a bad thing. As I say, the definition of populism is policies that are popular with the people. Please give me a call and let me know what is wrong with that. 03444991000. When we come back, we need to talk about Doctor Who and the BBC with the Sun's TV editor, Rod McPhee. Stick around.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, let's talk TV. My old patch, if you like. I used to be a TV critic, very renowned. I was awards resistant. Never managed to even get nominated. And there's a reason for that. I was a load of crap. No, that's a joke. I wasn't that. But actually, I probably was. Sunday Mirror. That is a load of crap. Right, let's talk to the TV editor of The Sun, Rod McPhee. Welcome to the studio, Rod.
Hello, nice to be here.
Now, you've got a big piece in tomorrow, Sun, and it's basically about well, the struggle for survival, in a way, for terrestrial TV, our traditional channels, especially the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, against the rise of the streaming services, the big streaming channels, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, etc. What's the tenor of what you're saying?
Well, what I'm getting at is that the main channels, BBC, ITV, Channel 4, really need to up their game, because the streamers are basically dominating all the best shows at the moment. I mean, you're talking about things like Adolescence, Bridgerton, The White Lotus, all the big shows, you know, Clarkson's Farm. Yeah. We're talking about these really big shows that everyone's talking about, and people are watching in their millions. So the question is, what are BBC and ITV putting up against this? And an interesting tipping point came this week when Disney bought Blind Dates. Now, you know from your days as a top TV...
I just remembered, I used to have your job. I used to be the TV editor of The Sun.
Yes, yeah, you did.
That was about, let me get that right, it was 423 years ago.
A bit longer than that, I think, Kevin. And I, like you, I've never been nominated for an award. It just doesn't produce things the same way as other areas. But the point is, that's what I'm telling myself. Anyway. But the point is, Blind Date, of course, was a mainstay for ITV. You know, it was a big TV show on one of the big channels. Now, if even that goes across to Disney, what hope is there for these other for the likes of BBC and ITV? You know, but basically.
So are the terrestrial channels, ITV in this case, they're just selling the rights to Netflix, or what?
No. What happens is that these shows disappear off ITV and BBC, and then the rights come up. They get bought by a production company, who then take it to the likes of Netflix, etc., etc. And what you've also seen over the last 5 years, you've seen Jeremy Clarkson going to Prime Video, you've seen Holly Willoughby going to Netflix, Emma Willis now going to Netflix. These big stars from the main shows are now being bought up by the streamers, because the streamers are where TV shows are at right now.
So what's going to happen to the terrestrial channels?
Well, if they're not careful, it's going to reach a tipping point where all these other channels, yes, you have to pay subscriptions at the moment, but it's going to reach a point where, you know, I personally think that Disney and Netflix and all these people are going to start to team up and offer better deals than the licence fee. And then people are going to start saying, why are we paying 175 quid for the licence fee? I mean, people are already questioning it now.
Loads of people are already asking that question.
So one day it's going to get to the point where we've got better telly on the streamers. Even if we pay for all those subscriptions, it will still be less than the licence fee. So what are they doing to justify the licence fee? It's crazy.
The BBC in particular, 170 quid a year for that. I mean, God, you know, as I said earlier, 170 pounds a year to be told lies about Gaza seems a bit steep to me. But what you're essentially saying here is that our traditional terrestrial channels, the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Channel 5, they don't really know what to do.
No,
I mean they are sort of locked into scheduled television, which is dying a tragic death. I read the other day that the BBC is making plans to become a non-scheduled service, where you can cherry pick, like you can with the streaming services. You can watch what you want when you want. So they're possibly planning to move into that world, but they're way behind Netflix and all the others. And that's the point, isn't it, Rod? That the offer the streaming services give you is this: you can watch what you want when you want. Meanwhile, the BBC said, right, 6 o'clock it's the news, 6:30 it's the One Show, and so on and so forth. That sort of scheduling straitjacket is dying, and it is kind of killing the terrestrial channels. It's like the concrete boots around their ankles, isn't it?
I mean, look, let's give a little bit of balance just for a second, because, look, BBC and ITV still do great shows. You know, Strictly, I'm a Celebrity, all these kinds of shows. But you know, look at the Traitors.
No, of course.
But the point is that what's next? You know, what's next for them? What are the next big shows they're coming up with? Because a lot of these shows have been on our screens for 20 years. Yeah, they've got streaming services. You've got ITVX, you've got the iPlayer. But it's not just about money. It's not just about throwing money at things. Look at what's happened to Doctor Who recently. Had millions pumped into it.
Talk to you about that.
I mean, look, most people have said it's been an absolute woke fest, and that's what's killed off Doctor Who. It's had so much money pumped into it. If the BBC can't even make Doctor Who work with all that money, there's a bigger problem here.
In terms of the BBC, and I think this is a sickness that infects the other channels as well, particularly Channel 4, but ITV is getting pretty woke as well. I mean, why are they allowing themselves to sink into this sea of wokery more and more? You know, what was that program called, The Unforgotten or something, which was, I remember, was a really good series at first, and now you watch it, it's just a mass of wokery, ridiculous. You know, as you say, Doctor Who has just killed itself with this nonsense. Woke, boring rubbish is what the viewers always say. Why do all the executives who work at these channels sort of receive all these complaints? They know what people are saying. What have you done to Doctor Who? What have you done to these Unforgotten? What have you done to these programmes? Why do they listen to all this and then ignore it?
I think they're in slight limbo, because you've got the likes of you and I, slightly old-timers, no offence. But, you know, we
no, slightly.
No, but we know the kind of programmes that we like, and they have to cater for us. What they're now doing is they're trying to cater for your millennials, your Gen Zs, those kinds of people, and they don't quite know how to do it. So what they end up doing is taking an old show like Doctor Who and trying to tailor it for a younger market. Yeah. So it falls between the two stools. The thing is, with Netflix and Prime Video as well, they do have a lot of money. So if they run a show that's not very good, they go, all right, that cost us 10 million, let's do something else, let's try something else. The traditional broadcasters don't have that money, and they need to start thinking in a more lateral and clever way, otherwise they're going to die.
And so will they become, essentially, in the fullness of time, streaming services?
I hope not, because just to sound a note of optimism here, I think public service broadcasting in this country is an amazing thing. We want to keep that. We want the BBC and ITV and Channel 4 to do well, but they have to do better than they're doing now, and they could do much worse than look at what the streamers are doing. And wokery won't solve the problem.
I would say also, I mean, I'm not steeped in it like I used to be, but there's an imagination problem. Most of the programmes that I seem to notice are sort of reinvented versions of programmes that were on 20 years ago. Nobody comes up with a new idea. And also, this was a problem when I was a TV critic, and I think that they didn't quite notice this was going on. That you had, as you said earlier, you had these huge shows that have been on for donkey's years. Strictly, in my day, The X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, Apprentice. So the whole TV calendar would revolve. Here comes The Apprentice. Oh, it's time for Strictly. Oh, yes, it's November. It's I'm a Celebrity, and all the channels are sort of addicted to that.
Nothing's changed. I mean that's still the case now, and I get it, because these are huge ratings winners, but there's still quite a lot of gaps in there where they could find some new shows.
That's what I'm saying. The people who work for the TV channels, I mean, I know a few of them, and they are a bit like this. They go, oh, this is this drama, it's a disaster, no one's watching it. Don't worry, it's I'm a Celeb next week. You know, that's the attitude, isn't it?
But the trouble is that they really need to start competing, and that's the thing. They didn't used to have competition 10, 20 years ago, but now they're in a fight for their survival, and people are going to start asking the question, why do we pay £175 a year for TV when we can go off to these other streamers and pay £5, £10, £15 and get the most electrifying TV on the planet right now? Let's be right. These shows are the best shows in the world, but we're still paying a licence fee for 5 channels that don't quite give us the same level of TV.
So this is in the Sun tomorrow. Let me ask you a last question, which is important. Look, Doctor Who came to a kind of conclusion last week, didn't it, with the emergence of Billy Piper, who I think, despite all the hype, isn't the new Doctor. What is going to happen now is that Doctor Who seems to have killed itself or drowned itself in a sea of wokery, and it's gone into a hiatus. Basically, the BBC saying, well, we're going to rest it, which doesn't sound good. Why in particular? Because Doctor Who became the epicentre of wokery, didn't it? Why Doctor Who? First, Kick-Off is supposed to be a kids' programme. It used to be a fun sci-fi programme. Why did they turn it into basically LGBTQ Weekly?
Because it's sci-fi. That's the short answer. It basically means that, you know, the Doctor isn't human. So the Doctor can be anything they want him to be, and they go to all these different parallel universes, all these unusual creatures. Doctor Who's always been kind of a metaphor for otherworldliness.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they've taken that and they've blown it up to ridiculous proportions, to the point where, you know, I have a lot of gay friends, and my gay friends even get fed up with the LGBTQ message being rammed down their throats. One week
it's lecturing, isn't it?
It's you know,
preaching.
It started this series with Planet of the Incels. Look, no one's saying that these things are great things. They're terrible things. But look, let's just have a sci-fi series back where we can be scared of some monsters that then get beaten by the Doctor, and we all carry on with our lives.
We save the world in the nick of time, like they used to. So this is in the Sun tomorrow.
It is.
And let me just say, my friend Ali Ross has been off for a while, but he's coming back, I believe, next week, I think. His column, I think, will be, first column back will be June the 13th, and he is the greatest TV critic in the world. When I was a TV critic, it was a weekly depression for me, because I go, oh, I've written a really good column here, and then Ali's column, look forward to reading your piece. Rob McPhee in the Sun tomorrow. Ali Ross comes back next week. Buy the paper tomorrow. Thanks, Rod.
Thanks very much.
Next up, your calls, 03444 499 1000. Stick around.
Musk is saying he is going to, in effect, take offline. You've got Steve Bannon, who, as you know, is a big supporter of President Trump, who's suggesting that Trump take over SpaceX. I'm not quite sure what the authority would be to do that, but take over the company so that that doesn't happen. This is a total mess.
Yeah.
And as I said at the beginning, you know, in terms of a tabloid type story, a sensational type story, I don't think you can beat this one, can you?
No, I don't think you can.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. A couple of messages. Thanks for all your messages. Sorry I haven't had time to read enough of them out. This is from Carl. Great show. Thanks, Carl. Thanks for having Sarah on. That's Sarah Pochin. She's a future star in politics. Absolute breath of fresh air. More of Sarah. I agree with you. I think she is a future star. Straight talker. Tells it like it is. Answers a straight question, you know, with a straight answer. Very unusual in politics. Sam in Brighton says Starmer, quite frankly, is an embarrassment. Agreed. The sight and sound of the man makes my skin crawl. It is shameful that this is the calibre of person we are sending around the world to represent us. This is Martin in Whitley Bay. He said, this is about the burqa. I've refused to get on a train because of a tall burqa before. Definitely wouldn't get on a plane. You don't know who's under it, what they're carrying, or whether they've been properly security cleared due to cultural sensitivity. Ban all face coverings. They have no place in the UK. I tend to agree. Quickly, Pete Barnes will be in just a little while to tell you what he's got lined up on my show. But first, let's talk to Les in Cheshire. Hi, Les.
Hi, Kev. How are you doing?
I'm all right, mate. You want to talk about the burqa? What would you like to say?
Well, yeah, I think, Sarah Porchin was right. However, she could have gone about it a better way.
In what way?
She should have said, when the government going to ban all face coverings in this country, especially those people who were in kaffirs on Palestine marches, and when are they going to ban burqas?
That's an interesting point, Les. I don't think she went... I mean, she's talking about the burqa, a religious garment that she doesn't approve of, that she wants banned. She feels like me. It's a sign of consigning women to second-class citizenship. You know, so she just didn't mention. But you make a good point. These people on the Palestinian marches and all that who, cover their faces with these scarves. That is a good point as well. I agree with that.
I can't go out in Manchester now, based on the fact that they're marching up and down the streets in Manchester on a regular basis, and you're getting confronted by somebody, or you can only see their eyes because of these keffiyeh they wrap round the face.
It's a really good point, Les. It's a really good point, Les. I mean, I think Sarah was kind of making a different point, which was just about the burqa, the religious nature of it, the security aspects, and whether or not we should have such a garment in a 21st century country. But I agree with you. We've got to think about all these guys who go around with these kaffir scarves all over their face as well. Very good point. Thanks. I've got to go now, Les, because the show's nearly over, but very good call. Thank you. Les in Cheshire there. Oh, my God, it's Pete Barnes. He's a talk presenter. Well, what have you got lined up on my show?
On your show, yes. So it's in safe hands. I'm joined by the wonderful Chloe Dobbs. She's agreed to be the Friday friend. Yeah. We're talking ECHR and Kemi Bainall.
I bet she's better than one I am every Friday.
Yeah. I hear he's terrible. He's actually awful, you know. But so we've got ECHR and Kemi. We're talking about the NHS and them rejecting many of the trans the rulings from the Supreme Court. We've got a Somali refugee, a Somali asylum seeker who was a knife wielder, and he's still allowed to stay in the United Kingdom. How this is a thing, I do not understand, but it is literally the show of breakups because everybody seems to be falling out with each other.
Tell me about it.
It's crazy.
What's your take on Zia Yousaf?
I don't know. At times I felt like he was a little bit out of his depth. But you can't deny that he made an impact. I mean, I remember sitting here watching you interview, and I thought he was.
No, I remember we were very.
He
was a great talker. Yeah, great talker, no
great communicator.
Yeah,
but I don't think he was quite ready for the rough and tumble of Westminster.
I think you're right. I think he was very bruised by the brutal reality of politics.
Yeah. There's thick skin, and then there's Westminster thick skin.
And what about your hero, Kemi Bainall? Why does she need 5 months? Why does she need a review to work out what to do about the ECHR?
Well,
I can save her a lot of money. I could save her 5 months. Quit. Just leave.
Well, the thing is, even if you do quit, I think the Tories will still be in the same mess that they're in. But I think
that's a concession.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to be more even-handed. But
you're a host now.
Yes, but
mind you, you couldn't be more biased than me. So.
But no, I think the way that she's going about it is the right way. It is about for doing this slowly, strategically, because this is about not just because there's decades of precedent. There is so much law that is built out of these rulings.
You think people? Do you think?